Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk That Talk Tuesday. Hey, listen, we got a great show prepared for you guys tonight, man. We got a special guest in the building tonight. I am peacock proud and honeymoon happy to be in the building tonight. Hope all of you out there are doing fine and doing well. The show is about to start. I'm going to play our intro, but before we do, I want to do a little I want to be a little courteous to our guests tonight. So we got Crystal Light in the building. We ready? Greetings from the boot. All right. Yeah, in Louisiana. Who that? You're absolutely correct. The Saints will be in the Super Bowl this year. Derek Carr will be league MVP and Super Bowl MVP as well. Just want to throw that out there. We got Reckless Ray in the building tonight. We got Lost in Translation in the building tonight. As you come in, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and go ahead and get in those comments because I know there's going to be a lot to talk about tonight. You see the title of this tonight's show, Domestic Violence Against Men on the Rise, and no one gives a shit. And we got a great story here tonight. Well, we got a few videos we want to play and get into after this. So, guys, again, thank you for being here. And we're about to get started right after this, our intro here. Here we go. And thank you guys for being here. Hit the like button, subscribe button. Let's go. We are in the building tonight, man. Guys, look at this panel. Look at this panel. Look at this panel. We got some people in here tonight that's going to bring it. My guy, JT, Mr. Bennett, Reckless Ray, Lost in Translation. Jay is in the building. All right. Woo! Our Pain is in the building. And our special guest tonight, our investigative reporter who does such great work. I'll let her introduce herself as well in a second and tell you how you can find her and look at some of her work. Christina's in the building with us tonight, co-hosting with me on tonight. Now I want to go around the room just for a brief second, and everybody just, let's check mental health first before we start. JT, how are you? How's the family? And then we'll go to Mr. Bennett, Reckless, Lost in Translation, Jay, Arpain, Christina.
Good evening, everyone. Man, I'm doing fantabulous. Family is doing fantabulous. It's Tuesday, dog. You know what it is? I am not going to complain about nothing. Ain't going to do no good anyway. So, it's always going to be good with me, even when it ain't.
Well, things are good here. Now the school year is about to get underway. I moved my daughter back to campus for her third year. One more to go to get her settled in. So we're just matriculating them through, just checking them off. And empty nesting is right around the corner. But otherwise, the family's doing fine.
Who's next?
Oh, lost in translation. Go ahead. My bad. I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. I am doing much better. I had a little bit of a bug a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
I had a situation where I couldn't sleep, man. I was up for like 3 days in a row, man. I just had ideas after ideas after ideas. And after I wrote all that stuff down, I took a day off from work and said, I'm going to sleep.
Yeah.
I need to put my mind to rest. So after that, I was good. After I just needed a whole day of just rest, and I'm back to normal now.
All right, man. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're feeling better, brother. I was checking on you. I was making sure. I said, let me call my brother because he was tired, man.
Yeah.
Reckless. What's going on, man?
Man, I'm gonna switch it up today. Overcoming adversity, which builds character and also makes men stronger. So as per usual, better than I deserve. Thankful for the adversity. Thankful for the opportunity to prove myself. Thankful to become stronger.
All right, Reckless. Okay, I like that. I like that, Reckless.
That's what's up.
J Mac, my sister. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on again. I just was feeling so blessed today, specifically today, because this is my first show that I've done. I don't even know how long that I did not have any mic issues. So I think we finally figured out the mic problem. I think it was a proximity thing to the router. I think my microphone just does better being closer to the router. So I guess I kind of figured that out. And shout out to Ray. He was present during the video. So I think we had a great time. But of course, thanks so much for having me on. I can't wait to have a great talk tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. And I'm glad everything worked out for you. Because listen, when I first started, if you go back and watch some of my earlier stuff, you be like, God, he made it. He made it. Because it was horrible. But anyway, thank you for being here, Jay, and giving us your time on tonight. Our Payne, who just celebrated over 36 years of marriage, we definitely got to give it up to our Payne because he's an ex-stripper, and it's hard for male strippers to find wives. So our Payne, man, we just want to celebrate you and your wife.
Yeah, so we had a great time last week. I just wanted to come on and say something. She didn't want to go on camera, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew I was online and I was married, because everybody only sees it. So yeah, we had a great time. We didn't do nothing. Every time we go out, we just set the hotel up and just hang out. It's kind of funny. You know what? After 36 years of marriage, I still got to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Young kids, you're at the
congratulations, sir.
And congratulations, man, because you scared me a little bit. I was about to hold you accountable. Let me tell you why. Because when you came onto the show in the back, you were the first one here. And all I heard was I saw your face, you turned the camera off, and I saw you in in a hotel room. I said, what the hell is he doing? And then I heard a woman's voice in the background, like, yeah, baby. I said, oh, hell no, he ain't. I said, what you doing? What you doing? He said, oh, no, this is my wife. I said, oh, okay. All right.
Everybody know you got to get the women out of their own surroundings. You got to put them in new surroundings from time to time.
Absolutely.
That's the bottom line.
Absolutely, brother. All right, thank you. Now, Christina is here with us tonight. She's our guest co-host with me tonight for this topic and this subject. Christina, thank you for being here. You do great work. Tell everybody how they can reach you and how they can watch some of your stories as well. So the floor is yours.
Okay, well, you can reach me and see my stories on Flip by Fate, TikTok. Just a little bit about me. I'm from Orlando, Florida, church girl, grew up in the Black church. Love the Black church, but I'm kind of on a hiatus from it. But that's where I gain a lot of my stories from, a lot of background knowledge. And as long as I have my crystals, my candles, and my sage, I'm good. So I'm good and peaceful, nice and peaceful.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. We're gonna talk about this thing. We're gonna have another show about that. Okay. And I want you here. We're gonna talk about them crystals.
You gotta be careful where you get them from.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're gonna talk about them. All right. So thank you for being here. So guys, you know what we do. I always like to bring up a video first for us to break the ice here at the beginning of the show. And I have one here for you guys. And Lord help us tonight. Let me play it. I'm just gonna play it because I think this is crazy. And while we're waiting on that, guys, if you're just coming in, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Go ahead and make sure you subscribe to all these lovely content creators. We're trying to get Jay up to 1,000 by the end of the month. So we need to go ahead and get her, get all of you that have not subscribed to the Tough Topics podcast. Make sure you go and subscribe and support her. She ain't playing no games over there. She's telling you like it is, and when you don't like it, you just don't.
Yes, thank you so much for the shout out. I would so appreciate anyone's subscription. We're so close to 1,000, and certainly the number is moving every day. So I think we do good work over there. I really appreciate the ones of you who have been, like, people will say, "Hey, Black Man Unfiltered sent me," or I forget, there's another gentleman that people say sent them. I have to remember who that is to shout him out as well. So thank you guys so much.
Absolutely. So here, I want you guys to see this video. This is where we're going to start tonight, because you see the title of this show. Domestic violence against men is on the rise. The numbers are getting astronomical. I don't know if men are getting less intimidating or men are getting no respect, but the numbers are climbing like you would not believe. And so I want to play this because Dr. Feelgood had a guy on his show who was getting abused by his wife. And this is what he had to say to the guy. Here we go.
You say she has come at you, she has attacked you, you have done what you have done purely in defense.
Definitely.
I don't care what she does. If she starts punching you, then you turn around and walk away. If she starts following you, then you walk faster. If she starts chasing you, then you outrun her. Never, ever put your hands on a woman in anger, ever.
Reckless, you have a 10-minute margin. We can't get you first, okay? Because you're reckless.
Okay. All right.
I feel the steam coming out of you, okay? Mr. Bennett starts shaking his head because I know Mr. Bennett don't have no love for Dr. Phil. So I want to, whatsoever. Mr. Bennett, what are your thoughts on the video?
Well, I mean, there comes a point where you have to, as they say in these states, stand your ground. I just disagree. I think if someone is looking to inflict bodily injury on you, you're well within your rights to defend yourself, whether it be male, female, whether the person's 100 pounds lighter than you, or it just doesn't matter. You have a right to defend yourself, and certainly, that might be maybe your first instinct to walk away from the situation. But if it gets to a point, if that person's coming at you with, I've heard stories, people come at you with knives, machetes, you name it, you have a right to defend with equal force. So I've never been that person who says you should never, ever, under any circumstances, ever hit a woman. Not to say that you shouldn't be looking to do that, but I just disagree. I think no one has the right to put their hands on you in a violent fashion, and you have absolutely the right to defend yourself. So I'll always stick with that.
All right. So we'll go up to, I'm trying to be strategic here. It's good God Almighty. We'll go to our sister JJ. What are your thoughts about the video you just saw?
It was strange to me the way that he decided to word it, because I feel like he could have given the same qualifier that Mr. Bennett did, and I think anyone could hear that and agree with it, to say, hey, don't put your hands on anyone. Or even if you want to say, I'm in the camp of, I know why people tell men not to hit women. I think that we know that things like domestic abuse on both sides does exist, and I think it kind of just hits people's, it hits your ear wrong when you think of a man hitting a woman out of anger. But it's kind of like he said two things at one time. Like he started out kind of by saying, if she's hitting you, then just run away from her, or distance yourself from her. And then he conflated that with having hit a woman out of anger. Those aren't the same two things. One is self-defense. And so certainly you have the right to defend yourself, man or woman. And I think that in today's time, especially, women need to be very aware of the changing tides in society where, you know, you've fought so hard to be considered just like men. And so if that's the case, then you need to be if you think you're going to be putting your hands on somebody, certainly if a man hit another man, he wouldn't expect to do that unscathed. So you as a woman shouldn't expect that either.
All right, thank you so much. Let me get Lost in Translation. What are your thoughts?
Here's my thing: is men, we have to be well versed in different theaters of combat. Okay, most times, most men are merchants of destruction of physicality. You know what I mean? That's what we're good at. You know what I'm saying? It's what we do. You know what I mean? We crush things. You know what I mean? In certain situations, you can't always exercise that element of destruction. You know what I mean? Especially when it comes to somebody who's weaker. We as men have to get better in the theater of intellectual combat. You know what I mean? Attack people where they don't think you're going to attack. You see what I'm saying? Most women on a regular basis don't think that men are intelligent. I had this same conversation with a friend of mine today, and I was like, "You really think men are dumb, don't you?" I can tell how you talk about men, how you respect you actually think that we don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean? I had to sit her down and say, no. We allow you to do that because that's what we want out of that particular situation. So most times I challenge men to read every day and to be better at what you're doing every day. So that way you can meet people on different theaters and you don't have to run. You can still stand your ground and you don't have to exert physicality at all times. You know what I mean? That's the difference between being a gentleman and a savage. You know what I mean? You have to know where that line is and know not to cross it. You know what I mean? There's a time and place for everything. You know what I mean? If somebody decides they want to cross that line, then guess what? You had an opportunity to handle it as a gentleman. Ain't that what Snoop said? We can handle this like a gentleman, or we can get to some gangster stuff. That's up to you. You know what I mean? So in this particular situation, I don't like how Dr. Phil painted this man. It seems as if we're always telling men what they should do. You know what I mean? Especially when we get in situations where the other team has the upper hand. You know what I mean? Like the police, they always tell you should always know how to act around the police. Put your hand on the steering wheel, 10 and 2. But nobody tells the police how are they supposed to be acting around us. You know, you don't have to be fearful of us. But nobody ever tells women, hey, this is how you handle a man. It's just that men should shut up and take it. Well, guess what? Some of us aren't going to shut up and take it. Some of us are going to handle it how we see fit. Now, my thing is this is up to you how you want us to respond. You know, my dad always told me there's always a king and a fool in every man, and who you address is who's going to respond. So my thing is this: choose your words wisely, Spartan.
Absolutely. Reckless Ray. Your thoughts?
You should let me go before Reckless.
Yeah, go ahead and let our pain go because I got stuff to say. I got feelings, emotions, and things to say about this. Let our pain go.
Absolutely.
Yes, I won't be long. Listen, you know, Dr. Phil said, "Don't hit a woman in anger." So what else would you hit her in? Happiness? You're not going to hit a woman if you're going to be angry. So that was stupid. He was pandering to his audience because most of them are female. You know, so I agree from the standpoint you should try to avoid it as much as you can. But hey, I gotta admit, man, women are as big as men now. They, as you know, the average woman is big now. I mean, they ain't like love taps. So, so I don't know what kind of domestic violence those guys got going on, but I mean, I never had to hit a woman, but I just say, you try to restrain yourself as best you can, but you can't just take a beating and you can't always run away, especially if you're in an apartment or something like that. So I think the tables are turning from the standpoint that, women shouldn't be thinking that they could hit men. And you know what? Lost in translation, we tell women all the time how we are. They just don't give a shit, right? We tell women about men all the time. They don't care. So, I mean, I'm not an advocate for hitting women, but there's a point at which you have to defend yourself if you can avoid it. But if you're in an apartment, she got utensils, she got this and that, you know, if you're outside in the street, yeah, man, move, run, whatever you can. But it's I think it's a case by case basis. It depends on the level of her threat. It really does, you know. And we got to stop telling men that, you know, stay there and take a whipping. You know, I mean, it's crazy, you know. So yeah, you're not supposed to hit a woman, especially if you're initiating the hit. But when are people going to learn? I mean, we always turn the other cheek, and I don't know if I agree with that anymore. You know, so at one point, maybe now, but again, I'm not saying haul off and, you know, give her a haymaker. But we got women challenging boxers, welterweight champions in a fight. This guy, you know, I mean, it's just no boundaries anymore with this equality thing. I don't think women think they're just equal to us. I think they think they're superior to men, you know? And so I hate to say it, but if he fights Clarissa Shields, I'd say he should try to beat her like she was a man, you know? So, and just so we could put an end to this thing. I saw, but you know, that's just me. I might sound like a savage, but I'm sorry, man. Men's got to stop taking these L's. That's the bottom line.
Before you go reckless, Christina, what are your thoughts on Dr. Feelgood?
Well, I think it because there can be a lot of moving parts, right? It like certain things can spark certain arguments. Like if she walks in on him with another woman and she whacks him, that's one thing. But if they're just not seeing eye to eye and she's just going off literally fighting, beating, honey, my granddaddy was a bootlegger. And he said, if you walk around with the spirit of a man, you can get whopped like one. Nah.
Words to live by.
I think you should try it. But it's almost like the young man is a footnote to his own abuse.
Yep. That's it. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to the stage for your listening pleasure, Reckless Ray De Niro. What are your thoughts?
So my thoughts, obviously, Dr. Phil is on TV. I understand why he had to phrase things the way that he says them, because anything can get clipped, taken out of context, and he lives there, so that's where his money comes from. So he can't risk coming either at these any type of way. The way that I'm looking at this situation, though, is why are men getting more abused? I can tell you exactly why. Men are weaker. Y'all are physically weaker. Most of you are running around. Men's grip strength is weaker. Your bodies are weaker. Your spirits are weaker. Your wills are weaker. You've been neutered. Women are perceptually becoming stronger because you have become weaker. At the same time that our grip strength has gotten weaker, your bodies have gotten weaker, these chicks are going to the gym. They're going and working out all day. And they think that that does something. When in reality, even the weakest man could mess around and accidentally put a woman off this planet. These are just facts. Soft bones. Just what it is. But men are being neutered. So like you're told, like I grew up in a household, same way. You're not allowed to hit women. Like you don't hit women, which is understandable. But there's some men out here that are running around that are literally loaded guns, that have seen carnage, that have seen true violence, that you probably don't want to put your hands on. And some of those men have the philosophy that anyone who puts their hands on me has to either go to the hospital or be off this planet. And that's a real scenario. Now, if you take a man like myself, for example, I don't know if anybody watches any of I've been uploading some of my breakdance training stuff. I can literally push a grown man the size of Black Men Unfiltered over with one hand.
Hey.
Now, imagine if I grabbed your face and pushed as hard as I could really quickly. Your neck's broken. That's the end of you. It's over. And that really is like split second thought. If I feel like I got to defend myself, that's my go-to. I'm just going to push you away real quick as far as I can. Now, The other issue here is, and why men are getting hit, is because women know that they can hit men now. They have the court systems on their side. Men are also no longer capable of great violence. There are very few men like that because we've neutered most of them. So now you have a bunch of men that you know are going to restrain themselves, and they're going to restrain themselves, and they're going to restrain themselves until, and this is the one time that men are capable of great violence, when they have that emotional outburst, when they decide they're going to drive their car into a group of women and then get out of the car and start stabbing them because no one's paying attention to them and they've got a problem with that. Or when they decide that they're going to go and they're going to pop up a school because they're ignored, they're constantly picked on, and they're not capable of defending themselves in any other means till they get to the point to where they don't care anymore. Then they're capable of great violence. But you blame that on toxic masculinity when actually that's toxic femininity ingrained into a man. Those are weak men. That's what happens when the reserve comes off at the last vestige of the restraint that he's got left. And all of that comes out. And then we don't like it. We call that toxic. Oh, well, you just shouldn't do that. The dude walks into a building crying, popping off shots, or drives into a group of women crying about how he's ignored. But y'all want to say that that's the best of us. That's not the best of us. That's not. And then the last reason that men are getting abused is because men seek this out. Now, as somebody I've been hit once, one time. And I literally had to sit that woman down and tell her the way that my brain works, I either need to hit you back or you need to be off this planet. And if I hit you back, it's a good chance you're going to be off this planet. And then I get to go to jail. So you can't be around me ever, because I'll never forget. That's a scale in my brain that is now unbalanced. And I don't want you to exist anymore. It's that annoying to me because you're that weak. It upsets me that somebody that's that weak touched me in an aggressive fashion. And I allowed them to continue living. That's upsetting. But it only happened once because I didn't continue the relationship. That's the thing. That's the other part, is how weak and low self-esteem do you have to be?
That's what I was going to say.
To allow somebody that much weaker than you to continue to put hands on you. You're allowing this person to exist. And truth be told, I believe this across the board. The man that is stronger allows the other men that are weaker than him in his presence to exist. Allows the other beings in his presence to exist. We're not that far removed from a time where men went outside and looked to the left and said, we're going to go take everything that's over there that we want, regardless of what they have to say, because we can. Don't forget who y'all dealing with. You want to bottle this up and keep bottling it up, and then when you start seeing these outbreaks, because the polar opposite of this is there's going to be men that are glorifying hitting women. Then that's going to motivate these weak, emotional men to start hitting women because they can win that fight. It's the one fight they can win, because when they're in my presence, they're allowed to exist. They're just told not to hit you. So, I mean, you might want to take that in consideration before we start glorifying this female empowerment to the extent that y'all think you can just run around hitting dudes. They could get ugly on accident.
All right. And now we got Brother James Sharp in our chat tonight. Thank you for being here. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe button. It says, he said, I used to work in law enforcement as a civilian employee. I worked at RC last decade. I processed hundreds of jackets, inmate files of women arrested for DV. He said he's in California. He also went to say, men, I repeat, stop taking abuse from women. It's 2023. I'm in Southern California. Women get arrested for DV on a regular basis. It's not embarrassment anymore. All right. This is a new day, men. Forget the past. If your woman puts her hands on you, call the police and and have them throw her under the jail. All right. That's what. And then Crystal says, I honor a man who has restraint, but it provoked 2-piece dark and a biscuit.
Night.
And if need be, coleslaw.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
man.
Not the
Come on,
coleslaw.
come on.
I was about to say, did JT go?
No,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't. Not yet.
You gotta
No,
go.
I didn't.
JT, I'm sorry,
So-
brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's not gonna take long. My whole thing is that you have to start ignoring these type of women. I was just
Yep.
on my man Freezy. No captivity. Shout out to Freezy. We were just on there. He just did the whole thing with Brittany Renner. And,
Oh my God.
My man my man what's the little short little guy that's causing all kind of havoc? Charleston White.
Yeah.
And it made him look very, very bad being on that podcast with that woman that sat there and lost it. And my whole thing was that we have to, as men, first and foremost, have zero tolerance when it comes down to women disrespecting us, first and foremost. And if they are the type of women that Brittany Renner is, that's a firecracker. She's a destroyer. Everywhere she goes, she's going to destroy. That's wherever she's going to be, that's where you need not to be. And every woman that's like that. If you are in a relationship with a woman that's going to provoke you by using violence, even when it comes down to her, it starts with verbal violence. And once you get that, you have to be no nonsense on that type of behavior. Period. None. There should not be in your household us calling each other out our names, threatening each other. Those days are over with. You can't afford that anymore. One of the reasons why I tell you that is because it's not just that she can be violent towards you, but she can get you arrested. You come home and all your clothes are burnt up, cut up. She done put bleach into your fish tank. Whatever it is that she think that you love and adore, she's going to destroy it. So it's more than just that. You have to start being at a point where you're no nonsense when it comes down to potential violence, and it starts with verbal. So one of the things I'm really hopefully being able to talk to a lot of men, because I know a lot of men that has those type of volatile relationships. I'm like, that shit is you can't do that anymore. That's back in the day. You can't trust people like that anymore. They will call the cops on you and they will destroy everything you have. So you have to be the first one to say, listen, not only will I call the cops, I will be pressing charges on you and I'll be getting you up out of my house. Problem is, there are a lot of men that don't have leverage. They live with the woman.
Oh my God.
They have a job that does not pay enough for them to even afford their own car. So they're driving her car. They're taking care of her children, babysitting them. They are doing everything up under her power. This is why they have so much. These men are the ones that have the most problems because they can't do anything. And then, not to mention, a lot of these guys have warrants, bench warrants. They just don't deal with court or the police officers. So this is why the woman actually can do what she does with them, because she knows that they're not going to call the cops at all. So,
right. You know what? I'll say this, JT, and thank you for that. I remember a time I was much younger, and I remember my cousin and her boyfriend got into an altercation. This is why I'm so reluctant to help. Right, and jump in between stuff. I don't do that no more. We're gonna talk about that Friday, guys. Tune into the barbershop on Friday. We're talking about men shouldn't protect anybody that's not under their covering. That's on Friday. However, I broke it up. My cousin got mad, picked up a stick, and she hit me right here. Blood went everywhere. I'll never forget it. And when she did it, I saw myself unaliving her immediately. That was that anger, right? I said, "Oh, she got to go," but I resisted because I heard Mama in the back of my head from when I was a kid. Don't you put your hands on no woman, right? That was the only thing. The spirit of my mother's voice saved her life. I mean, when I tell you I had to have stitches across my head, she bust my head. open with that stick because I pulled her and the boy apart from each other. I'll never forget it. I was angry for months. I couldn't get over it. The fact that she was getting choked out at the time I broke it up. And when she hit me, she says, "None of your damn business what we got going on." I'll never forget it. Go ahead.
See, and you guys have been making such excellent points. I'm sorry, I have to jump in. Like
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been over here just itching. Like, first of all, what Ray said is excellent, and I have talked about that on my show before as well. This idea of the neutering and the making eunuchs of today's men, and what effect that's going to have when you continue to tell men that they are unimportant and that the only thing that they have use for is basically to be an accessory to women, and you diminish all of the countless contributions. I mean, you can't even really use the word contributions because it's just it's all of it. It's a man's world, which it's not me putting women down by saying that we have a role, we have a divine role. The issue is that we're just not operating in it. So basically, God left men in charge, and it's for a reason. It's because they have the physical strength and the mental strength, unless they have been effeminized. The only time that men don't possess, that ability to mentally compartmentalize things and to bear the brunt of society is when society is trying so hard to make them just like the women. And it's just like Ray said, when you do that for long enough and you don't allow men to healthily relieve their aggressions or these kind of things, then you have a man who may abuse a partner, not just react to abuse from a partner, but he may be the aggressor, or he may be a person that brings a firearm to a place that a firearm doesn't belong to, and all these types of things. So definitely that. And to your point too, BMU, when your cousin said mind your business, it reminds me of something I've been telling myself for years, that I caution myself in saying, because I know how bad it sounds, but I've always had this thing where I wonder what type of people stay in abusive relationships. Like, I've always thought that there was something to that. Like, that a hinged normal person would not remain in those types of situations unless they either are also abusive or they think so little of themselves. I mean, there's really little help that you can even give a person like that. If you yourself don't want to be removed from that situation, there's nothing that anyone can do for you if you yourself can't even realize that you shouldn't be a human punching bag. And I just think that those stories are a lot more nuanced than we give them credit for sometimes.
Black man, I want to say something about that too, to follow
Go
up.
ahead. Have your way. Anybody can jump in. We're having the conversation. Go ahead.
Here's the thing. We romanticize women surviving male abuse. We make movies about it. We put it on TV. You know what I'm saying? We have movies like Color Purple where the male antagonist is just so evil. You know what I mean? And Celie survived the abuse. They glamorize that. But on the other hand, there's no movies that are made of men surviving female abuse. There's no money in that because nobody cares. You see what I'm saying?
Well, can
Nobody
I interject
really
real
cares.
quick? Let me interject real quick. Let's think back, because when a man hits a woman, the world says, no matter, like Dr. Feelgood just said, no matter what she does not deserve for you to put your hands on her. Now, in reverse of that, let's talk to Tyler Perry. Come to the front of the congregation. Do you remember Diary of a Mad Black Woman, when she put him in the tub, almost let him drown? Right? If that was a man doing it to a woman, Tyler Perry will be canceled today.
Yep.
Immediately.
I mean, but let's kick the facts though. The Muslim religion literally tells you if you're a dude and you get taken out by a chick, you go to hell because you failed. You go to hell for that.
Right.
That's the reason you can't. The men don't survive abuse. If you get taken out by a woman, bruh, you go to hell. And I feel the same way for when birds get hit by cars. It's the same for dudes when they get taken out by a woman. It shouldn't happen. That's an abomination against your creator.
Right. All I was saying
But
is that we glamorize male, female surviving male abuse. You know what I mean? We make billions and billions of dollars off of that.
Because
and
men
it's
surviving
women,
female abuse
women
shouldn't
take
even
pride.
exist. It shouldn't exist.
No, women take pride in it because in certain situations they heard of a woman surviving abuse. But 9 times out of 10, generally, it's never something that actually happens to them. If abuse happened on the scale of how women actually tell it, every man on this planet would be in jail. You know what I'm just by the scale of the story that they tell. You know what I mean? So my thing is growing up, I never saw that. You know, as a child, as a grown man, I never saw that. You know, let women tell it. They've always heard somebody whose husband jumped on their wife or whatever, but it was never confirmed. But that doesn't stop that story from prevailing in hushed tones and in conversations. And it's fed and it's reinforced over and over. I heard.
But lost in translation.
You know what I mean?
Before you go, JT, hold on just a second before you go. Because I'm going to forget, I'm getting old.
Come on.
I remember my grandmother, not my grandmother I talk about all the time. The other one, she did. On my daddy's side, that woman was so mean. And I remember, shout out to my dad. I know he probably watched. I'm sorry, Daddy. Your mom was mean. She used to glorify the same thing. She said, one time your granddaddy came in late. I didn't say nothing. She said, I went in the kitchen and started cooking him breakfast. She said, I got his bacon, I got his sausage, I got his eggs, and then I made some grits. She said, I went over to the grits and I went in the room and got a roll of pennies out of my purse. I poured the pennies in the grits as I cooked them. She said, I superheated the grits. And when he passed by me in his tank top, baby, I took that pan of grits and I threw it on his back. My sister said, Grandma, what's the point of the pennies? She said, if you superheat copper and mix it with, I don't know why, she wasn't no scientist. I don't know what she was. She said, I guess our mama taught her this. She said, if you superheat copper and throw it with the grits, once it hit the skin, it sticks to the skin and you have to literally rip it off. So every time you pull a penny, skin would go with it.
Damn.
Oh, yeah.
So my grandfather,
that's smart.
She said my grandfather would sit there with the pennies and pull the pennies and it would rip his skin. She said he didn't cheat. She said, I thought he was cheating on me because he stayed out late. She said he didn't stay out late no more. And she glorified it. Everybody was like, whoa, you about to get him, Grandma. I said, hell no, this is toxic. For her to do that to him, hit him upside the head, slapping him in the face. You know, my daddy said growing up, his mama used to just jump up off the floor and just punch him in the mouth. What the? And he just let her do it. He saw she's just a woman. I mean,
well, that goes to the whole they specifically romanticizing it, like you mentioned, but specifically that generation, right? That time period of the older, like the boomers, and even before then. I would assume you're maybe even before the boomer generation. That era of people, that was such a thing, right? This idea of, oh, granddaddy's out cheating and this kind of thing. God rest my grandmother's soul, but 2 of my grandmother's kids are not my granddaddy's kids. And it's not even a secret anymore. So it's once again this idea that only men were cheating and stepping outside the homes and only men was tap dancing on folks' foreheads. And such is not the case. The reason why I think Lost in Translation was saying, the reason why it gets talked about differently is because nobody cares when bad stuff happens to men. Now, maybe that's just society being terrible people, or it could have a slight biological, slight evolutionary aspect to it, where, of course, we do know that men are, typically stronger and more able-bodied to inflict harm than women are. So we just assume when we hear that a woman has done something to a man, we just might brush it off like, oh, she can't really hurt him. Honestly, it's not even about whether or not you're hurting him, which obviously in the case that you were mentioning, BMU, obviously that would hurt anyone. But even when like it's a slap or this kind of thing, it's not about the pain. It's about the disrespect. It's the idea that you respect a person so little that you would put your hands on them with the expectation that they won't even hit you back. You're doing it assuming that they won't hit you back. So it's disrespect rolled into basically, for lack of a better term, like testing their gangster. And I just it's sad. I think that men, good men, of course, do so much, contribute so much, and to see this type of thing becoming more normalized, and romanticized through media and these other things, it's really disturbing to see. But yeah,
You know
that
what, Jay?
that silent generation, they weren't playing no games.
You know what, JT? You cook right after I say this. I think next Tuesday, see, y'all always birthing these ideas in my head. Next Tuesday, Jay, since you brought that up about your grandmother and those kids, because I know a few people that's like that too. I think we should do a show and call it Let's Read Your Grandmother's Diary. And we can do it next Tuesday.
All right now.
Let's read your grandmother's diary. So we'll do that next Tuesday. You just birthed that in my head. I think that's a conversation we just need to have because like you said, there's a whole bunch of men out here that are dark skinned. The woman is kind of coca mocha, right? And them kids yellow, right? And Deacon Johnson look just like little Jamie over here. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, it's a lot of that went on in the country. Those silent women, they go get that thing. Oh, yes, Lord, baby. Thank you for that, D. And had that baby, and your granddad thought that was his child. Go ahead, Christina.
If
Real
I
quick, and then JT.
just to piggyback on what this sister said in regards to like what you said, you don't know if it was like an evolution of how everybody came to think in this manner.
Right.
I honestly, my personal opinion in regards to the Ronell and Kiana situation, I think that's exactly how that happened. I think, you know how you said your grandmother would told you the story, but when I would see it on TV, it would be the opposite, right? Like the man was the antagonist and the grandmother will always be this helpless victim. It was like the contrary to what was occurring in reality. These women began to really believe that was their reality. And they kept passing that down to their daughters until young women like Kiana became an eternal, it's almost like she mentally was an eternal victim. She really saw Ronell as this deviant person, and even the other woman that Ronell was with, when in actuality, Ronell was definitely more so the innocent one in his first marriage when he got a divorce, because he actually, like his wife's phone had a tracker, and they had a new baby together. He worked full time. She's in his car dropping him off to work. He sees the tracker pinpointing her at the ex-man's house with his daughter. And then she tried to demonize him when he wanted a paternity test.
Then they love to add these other caveats to say, because y'all, I don't know how I'm forgetting this quickly. I don't know, because literally whoever just said this. But this idea of not having actually witnessed, I think it was lost in translation, not having actually witnessed these high instances of this physical domestic abuse. Like, we all heard about it so often, but how many of us actually saw it? So here's the thing, right? Here's my theory, that it wasn't happening at the rate that we were told it was. And since that was the case, they started to add more and more. Now it's, oh, I was emotionally abused. And if you've ever watched any of my videos, you know I cannot stand phrases like that. I can't stand phrases and concepts that cannot be qualified. Like, what exactly do you mean emotional abuse? The fact that he didn't agree with things you said. Did he tell you that you were gaining weight? Did he tell you that something you did embarrassed him in front of his friends? Like, what is emotional abuse? Like, what is that? And how can we even qualify or quantify that, right?
Ooh,
Financial abuse is coming next, so get ready.
Yeah,
Financial abuse is next. You don't give me enough money.
No, it was going, because that's what I was going to say too, where they use this as a default. When you ask women, they'll say that my ex-boyfriend, because you hear a lot of them talk about their ex-boyfriend. They never talk about the current man that they with. They always talk about the ex-boyfriend. And then when somebody grow a brain and say, "What if he was such a good person?" Because they say he was this and he was good and he was all these. They say, "Well, if he was such a good person, what happened with y'all two? Why did you guys?" And normally now the way it's going, dudes would say, "Well, why did you break up with him?" A lot of women would say, "Well, I broke up with him because we already know." The majority of women would break up the relationship. So now it's starting to be the default. He'll say, "Why did you break up?" She would say, "Because he was emotionally abusive, right? And they would, even if they say emotionally, if they don't say emotionally abusive, they say mentally or something like that, or they would say we agreed to break up or something like that. It's like, no, that's never just or it was mutual, right? It's these are the things that we talk about, but it's always the default that he was emotionally abusive. When it comes down to the generation before us, I'm about to land this black man.
No, you good, go ahead.
When it comes down to the generation before us, a lot of people don't want to talk about this. But I'm 50. So I'm talking about my great grandparents and my grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
They had to deal with the change of the marital construct, right? They were, when you talk about cheating and all these different things, their generations, those two generations were byproducts of this whole thing of men always cheating. But let's be real. Most of that before them was about polygamy. It was about men having multiple families. It got all the way up until my great-grandparents' generation. About time it got to my grandparents' generation, now it's called cheating when you have a man that has multiple families. One of the things that I do know for a fact is if they were born like in 09 to the 30s, right? 1930s. They grew up in polygamous relationships, especially if they came from the South. So what happened is that the next generation, they still was practicing it. But what happened was that the man was secretly taking care of a whole different family on another side of town. That's why when you went to the man's funeral, now you got the kids finding out that they have more siblings. And it was because they started to change the whole trajectory about relationships with women and men, because men took care of their women. If they had a child by another woman, they still had to take care of that child. Even if you see some of these older movies, if you've seen Chess Records, or if you've seen the movie with Ray Charles and all of these guys during that time, what was they doing? They were having extramarital affairs, and they ended up, when the wife found out, she ended up being the damn the step mama, sister mama, or surrogate. I don't know what it was, but the women still had to go, and they said, well, look, you got to take care of this child. As much as it hurt me, you still have to make sure that this child was okay, because it was still acceptable. They still were saying, you did cheat on me, but you still got to be honorable, and you still got to take care of that child. Fences was the other one. What happened?
That's what I was about to say. What did he say? What did he say to her? He said, yes, I am over there with that other woman. Yes, she pregnant by me. He said, but baby, when I'm here, I always feel like I'm obligated to do everything. And I do everything. He said, but when over there, she make me laugh. I don't feel obligated. She puts a smile on my face. That's why I'm over there.
Yeah, and that kind of hurt that woman.
It did.
But what it also did was not make her stoop to his level, right? She understood she understood the stress and the strain that it was, not only with her, but with his sons. Look, he had another woman. Remember, his oldest son, the one that kept borrowing money from him, was from another woman.
Right.
So and it's just where during that time, it was just a change. It was a change on how the construct of relationships were. And at some point, it just got to the point where, so when people talk about men are cheaters and all these different things, there's a reason why it's looked upon like that now. You just have a bunch of people that come on these panels and talking about it's the nature of a man to cheat and all that crazy ass malarkey that they bring up, without actually saying, listen, there's real concrete evidence on why it was. And polygamy was one of the things, but polygamy was used a different way. It was to build small communities into being larger communities. At least that was the ideal to do it. It wasn't just
Well-
so a man could just get all the
Well,
ass that he want.
Well, I mean, even the talking point though. Do we have more time in history where people were monogamous or people were polygamous? We got 5,000 years of recorded history. A very small part of it have we tried to dial this in, but the consequence of that is the people who were monogamous generally took out the polygamous people.
There you go.
Like it's just more organized. You're just a more organized unit.
Right.
And,
Like
and,
the more
and reckless. Why? Because most men can't attract women. They have to once they get that one woman, they like this is it. They don't want another man taking their woman and
Right.
5 other damn women because he got the money, and it was about resources. So it wasn't about because he was a handsome man and all this stuff. Now, if he was handsome, that was just an extra.
Yeah.
But the man was
Now-
resourceful.
JT, I have a kind of a question. I know you guys were mentioning the movie Fences. I didn't get to see that film, but I can kind of get the gist just from what you guys were saying. Now, here's my thing. As a person who is in a monogamous committed relationship, I do oftentimes find a little bit of discomfort sometimes, and I try to just check myself and just be objective and listen. But I have to make sure I'm getting clarification from men when we have these conversations. So,
Sure.
are you saying that, for instance, in that case with the film, I assume that the two main characters were poor, didn't maybe have a lot of money.
Right.
Right.
So
No, they
in
were lower middle class. It wasn't that they were just poor. He owned a house. He was a garbage man. He had a friend. They didn't have a whole bunch of money, but I mean, $2 went a long way during that time,
Well, I just mean this idea of when we're talking about, like you said, or somebody mentioned that the man in that movie, or maybe it was the other one, that he was saying he told his wife when he would go out and cheat with the other lady, he would say, "Oh, okay." Well, he said, "Well, when I'm over there, I feel like this and this and this." Well, you want to feel like a king, and I certainly make sure that my man does, but it's very easy for me to treat him like a king because he has provided this kingdom for me. Right now, if what you're saying is true, that they weren't just desolate in that film, then I guess that's different. But we can't pretend like some of these times, if it's a really bad environment and the woman is having to operate in a more masculine space because she's having to work her fingers to the bone just as much as the man, I think we have to be honest in saying we can see that those lines can be blurred sometimes, where you don't get the feminine, soft, pretty, the woman that has time to go get her nails done all the time and stay pretty for you because she's working at the freaking plant just like you are. You know what I'm saying? And I think we just have to be more genuine when we have some of these conversations.
But when we
Question,
see
Jay.
Fences, the thing was about
before y'all got one, just insert this real quick. We also what a lot of people do when they watch Fences. I had to watch it at least 5 times. I watched the stage play
me too.
with James Earl Jones, which was amazing. And then but I watched the movie with Viola and Denzel, which was also amazing. If you go back and watch it, you have to study this film.
Yes.
Because Denzel came from a place of brokenness that was unbelievable. When he sat and told the story of how his daddy, he found this girl that he really, really liked when he was innocent, that he really, really liked, that stayed down the street, and the daddy caught them kissing, where the daddy brought his girlfriend to the house and made him watch him have sex with her.
Yep.
Oh.
Y'all don't remember that part in the movie?
Lord.
Yeah, I remember it in the play.
He said, I had a girl, I really liked her. She was my friend. She was my girlfriend. I saw myself. My daddy hated me so much that he took my girlfriend and he raped her, guys. She didn't give it to him. He sat there and raped that innocent baby in front of his son because he liked her, just to hurt his son.
Yeah.
Okay, so hang on. So let's deal with some things here, because especially when you bring that clarity about that film. Sometimes I hear in these spaces where we don't, it's like sometimes we're kind of like a split personality here. We don't want to deal with the generational traumas.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times we talk about victim Olympics and all these other things that, when we're going to get over these things.
Absolutely.
And the reality is people are broken oftentimes by these experiences. The things that we're seeing are things that have been around for a while. That's when you label the title black man, when you say this DV is on the rise, it's not. It never was. There's nothing new under the sun. These things have been happening. Sister J, you talked about the silent generation. Well, there's a reason they were called that, because it was taboo to talk about your problems. Nobody wanted to hear about your problems, and it was an embarrassment. Men would have been embarrassed to your grandfather, black man would have been embarrassed
Right.
to share that information openly or to seek help from another man, because the men in that community would have looked at him a certain way. So there's some things that are in, especially I'll just talk about our community. I know the video that you played, it was a white man who was dealing with his woman. So I'm not gonna get into that that space in terms of the dynamic there. But I know in our communities, I think one of the reasons why we see this dysfunction, especially why we've seen in the last few decades, is that because women have been primarily the sole raisers of the children. I think women have had to take on the role not only as the nurturer, but also the disciplinarian. And so women, certainly black women, a lot of us black men, we've been growing up to actually fear our mothers. We didn't look at them as the nurturers per se, because either dad wasn't there or he was only there part-time. But that idea, that thought of, well, wait until your dad gets home. A lot of us didn't grow up with that. So mom did everything. So she came with the cord, the extension cord. She came with the hot water, whatever that
Racetrack.
was. A lot of us had to deal with that stuff. I dealt with that stuff. I've shared openly on this panel. My mom was a paranoid schizophrenic. So if you guys ever saw a movie, another movie reference, if you guys ever saw Mommy Dearest, go back and look at it. Faye Duminier from 1981.
Best movie ever.
I lived through that. Okay. So for a lot of us, you're asking why, why men are dealing with a lot of this abuse, because that's what they grew up with. And they looked at woman as, not someone to be, Ray, you talk about men should be dominant and should feel this way. We've all heard that story about the elephant, the baby elephant. If you tie the elephant to the post, even when it grows up and it's 10,000 pounds, it'll never leave that post because it's been conditioned that way. So a lot of, especially for black men, we've been conditioned in a lot of ways to fear our mothers, to fear our grandmothers, to fear our aunties. And that, I think, has certainly had a trauma in terms of how we deal with, or how we don't deal with when we see these men get abused. And it doesn't help when the men don't give any assistance to women. I mean, to men in these spaces. So there's a lot of things to unpack here. This is a generational thing. This is something that has been in the closet. We're just now talking about mental health. We're just talking about therapy. We're just talking about trying to deal with our traumas. But every time, a lot of times in these spaces, you bring it up, people just want to dismiss it. Oh, you're just playing victim game or whatever.
Yeah.
So we got to decide, are we going to deal with this stuff head on or not, and deal with how it really was? Stop glorifying the past, because again, fences took place in the 20s or 30s or whatever that took place in. So it wasn't all roses back then. We got to be honest about. We got to be honest about what that was like for a lot, not for everybody, but for certainly a lot, for a significant. I made this point on Friday's show with when Ray was hosting. We get all these things. Oh, was the majority, or was it was a minority? It was significant. A significant number of us were impacted and affected by these dysfunctional homes that we grew up in. That has had a major impact in terms of how men see women, and how we oftentimes we may take on abuse, because that's what we grew up with. Your mom was cursing you out every day, or she was beating you every day. So again, that idea was instilled in you, that to fear women. Yeah. That was a real thing for a lot of us. It was real with me until I broke away and I lived with my dad at 14 years old. That is when the therapy started for me, when I started being able to train a man. And again, when I lived with my dad, I had all that conditioning. I was a very fearful person. So dad had to kind of break me out of it the hard way. So I kind of had almost kind of like a fences type of existence with my dad, but part of that helped me to break out of that. So again, our past do condition us to the sort of treatment that we can expect from one, and that happens for men or women. And the one thing that I know, Big Bad Bull, he asked a question which I didn't necessarily like. because he said, well, how many people have been abused? Not your mothers or your aunties or your grandmothers, but guess what? Your mothers and aunties and grandmothers, they might have been the abusers.
Yep, they started it. Yeah, it's
So we can't just
right out of my
exclude them
mouth.
just because that
You
was
took
your
it right out
mother
of
or
my
grandmother or your auntie. They were the ones that was doing it to you.
Yes, sir.
That's why it's very significant when we talk about history. See, that's why when we talk about history and we wasn't, especially when we wasn't even teenagers or grown in that history. If you a kid and you was born in 1950, you can't really talk about what went on in 1950.
Right.
So when we look at these, we have to look at doctrine. And a lot of times movies do give us something. Like, I'm glad that, I don't know if it was me or whoever brought up Fences. Let me tell you something. If you never watched it before, take your feelings and put your feelings on the,
you got to. Yeah.
You got to put your feelings on the couch, and you won't get through it, because it's very, when I tell you, it's very eye-opening for people that don't know about what was going on. And that was just a portion of what was going on. Like Mr. Bennett was saying, there was a significant amount of people that had that. Generally, there were people that was coming from the South and going up north. This is when they started having a lot of cities that had booming industry jobs and things like that.
Detroit, especially.
Yeah. So even when you see it, trust me when I tell you, because you're gonna say, "Damn, yeah, he was." You could say he was abusive on this end, but then you say, "Damn, he was actually benevolent also." Because guess what he also did? He took his money. He probably would have took out $2, $3 to get a drink or something, and then he give all his check to his wife.
And I saw that firsthand, brother. My grandfather.
And I saw it.
He would give my grandmother all the money.
Yes.
All of it.
So if that was going on, then like, why did I don't understand? Like, if the dynamic is polar opposite of what these women told the generations after them, they were getting all the money and handling all the money, but then you also have to hide some of the money that you're not working for from the man who's busting his ass to give you the money. Like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, there's no lot.
I can answer that for you, Reckless. One of the things that the women didn't tell the men when he gave all the money was all the struggle she had to do to make that dollar stretch.
Yes.
Right.
You know, and so it was negative. That's why it was never a good idea for the men to give us all that burden of paying the bills to the wife. Because then there was some significant, let me just finish it out, I'll let you go.
Okay.
There was significant thing going on in the household that she wouldn't tell him.
Yeah.
Because she was handling it. Once you lose track of how you paying the bills, you know, he ain't asking and she ain't telling. She's just giving out, you know, she's trying to do her best. So those burdens were on her shoulders. It might cause her to be negative. You know, he ain't making enough, but I can't say anything. But that's just one way. It's not the answer, part of the answer.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's just because, like, I mean, like, from my perspective, I'm doing this from the top down because, like, I don't care what people that are losing are doing. But that's what all the rich people are doing. Like, I mean, the wives handle everything inside the door. Like, I mean, I just don't understand. Like, it seems like everything that's spurred from that silent generation literally just weakened us as a culture and weakened us as a community. Well, actually, it destroyed the community because there is no community. I'm not gonna even broach that conversation. Destroyed the community and then weakened us as a society because the people that are winning are not doing battle within their homes with their spouses. And these are just facts.
Right.
Like,
and we want to also, and I also want to put this out there because we said this, I think y'all talked about it Friday because I was watching it after rewatching it. When the guys were talking about, it's not the when it comes to the whole abuse thing, we can't assume that, we can't say that it was the majority of men. We definitely got to say the minority. A lot of those men did not beat their wives. A lot of those men committed to taking care of their families and gave everything that they earned to their wives. And those wives dispersed that money like they should. My grandfather, I do anecdotal here. My grandfather went off. He was gone a month at a time, 2 months at a time on the pipeline in Alaska, Cincinnati, California. He was everywhere putting pipe under the ground. And he would send my grandmother, he would take $2, $5, and send the rest of it to my grandmother. My grandmother would write, they would write each other. where he was staying at, and she like, hey, I found some land for this amount of money. I knew you were interested in land. Would you like me to purchase this land, this plot? My grandfather, my grandmother still got the letters that my grandfather wrote. She won't give them to me for nothing. But she said, and he wrote her back and said, I trust anything you do because I know you got us our best interest at heart. And she purchased land, and my grandmother and grandfather owned a lot of land. And when my grandmother passes away, my grandfather's already gone, God bless his soul. When she passes away, they have enough stuff to pass down for the next for my children's grandchildren to have something. And it's amazing how that worked. So I'm not going to say the majority of men were beating on their wives and bringing in the money to their wives. The minority of men probably were, but not the majority of men.
Right. But that's why, black man, that's why, again, that's why I keep going back to the term significant. For us to try to quantify it, it's enough. If you got, if 10% is wrong with your car, that's still enough to address the issue. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
If 1% is wrong with an airplane, you definitely better deal with the issue. So again, it's about the level of impact for it being wrong. If it affected 10, 20% of us, that's still enough to really give it its space and to give it the time that it's due. We shouldn't be dismissing it because it wasn't the majority of us, nor should we be exaggerating it, saying it was the majority of us.
I agree.
But it was enough. So let's just deal with what, those who are impacted. Yeah, most of us didn't come from that. But again, if I go around for again, a lot of us, a significant amount of us, I point to it on Friday. Yeah, my grandmother was abused by my grandfather. My father shared that with me.
Yeah.
But one thing that was interesting about it, though, I oftentimes find in these cases too, where oftentimes guys who come out of that trauma are almost they're so sensitive to it that they make a point not to repeat it. Like my dad never did that to my mom because he saw what his dad did to his mom. And he always felt a certain way about that, and that always impacted us. So I can point to anecdotal and specific experiences. Yes, that's happened, but I'm not going to, with a broad brush, paint all black people or certainly that generation with it. But we can't go around saying, "Oh, well, it didn't happen." Or like I said, this idea of painting the picture from the 1950s that we were so much better off. No, there were things that we were dealing with generationally that we're still looking to come out of.
But
to the point why we still having this conversation today.
I mean, it's 2023, people. I don't care what you say. There's no excuses. The older generation screwed up. My generation screwed up. We're kicking this can down the road, and everybody keeps looking in the rearview freaking mirror instead of the road ahead of us to fix this shit. It's decisions. No one's coming and doing anything to any of us now.
Reckless, I'm with
you,
bro.
The vast majority of women now are not getting abused.
That's why I said, again, the best fathers I know personally didn't necessarily have fathers themselves. Their fathers were mostly absent.
No,
absolutely. You absolutely, the decision is yours to certainly change your destiny. That is certainly your responsibility to do so. But to ignore how are we going to help other people to get over that? We can't just dismiss it either. Because
it's not dismissing it. Hold on. Sorry. It's not dismissing it to go, this happened. Like I can take you through. I study history for fun at a very high level.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that I grasp onto every single thing that happened that was terrible to black people. Like I can argue reparations post-slavery very effectively. Did those things happen? Absolutely. But when I look at that type of stuff, I go, damn it, we're still here. I'm strong. I descended from some people that went through some shit. That means I can go through some shit.
Black man.
And I don't grasp onto it and go, well, this is my excuse for making poor decisions continually, even though I see things that don't work. That's actually insanity. That's what that is.
But the math is off, right? See, it's like you're going, you have the formula, but the conclusion that you're coming. We're not saying to leap to that. Like you're saying, because of that trauma, we're saying we don't have to. If anything, that's a reason. So that's what we have to communicate to people. That is the reason. That's the motivation. The fact that you are here is the reason why you need to do better.
Right.
That is the conversation. So I'm saying, so a lot of people want to go that other side to say, oh, well, you got to stay here then because that's what happened to you. Nothing can be done about it. No, absolutely. And anybody who parrots that, anybody who tropes in that, I'm not down with at all.
Yeah.
I'm saying the fact that we have been so resilient that imagine if we just.
But my
Well,
question is,
so imagine-
Hold on,
oh, go ahead,
real quick, guys, because I want to get into the meat of the subject tonight, and we could carry it over to the next thing we're going to do because we got Christina here who's going to walk us through
Christina.
her work, and we also have Dr. Nkumbe in the building tonight, who is a licensed mind tickler, and so we have him in the building. We have my brother Dr. Nkumbe in the building tonight. I'm so glad he's here to give his perspective as well. I'm going to read this super chat. Let's see what we have here. We got Angry Snowman. Lord have mercy. He says special $5 super chat, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, my brother. Special shout out to Juan Julio Jose Guadalupe Rodriguez, also known as Reckless Ray's Mustache. Man, y'all are crazy out there, man. Wow.
Yo, I can't grow one. I'm just gonna get one. You know, one.
Just get one and just put it on.
We should have a show. We just all just put one on.
When I was training earlier this week, one of the guys I trained with was like, "That looks fake." I was just like, "Bro, come on."
It do because last week you didn't have it. Then all of a sudden you just laying up on your lip. I'm like, how did you do that?
Right now we got
like Richard Pryor,
Reckless Ray. Reckless Ray said he does like Richard Pryor. Reckless Ray says here, never say mind tickler again. All right, I got you right. All right, so I want to play this video. And this video was done by our sister here, Christina, and I want her to walk us through this traumatic and just horrible tragedy that happened between this guy. But we're going to go through the story first, and then we'll go from there. So here we go. Let me pull it up. And let me know, Christina, when you want me to stop, go. If you want me to stop or go, you let me go. Let it go all the way through.
You can
want
say
to go all the way through. Okay. Okay. Absolutely. All right. Here we go, guys. Let's see. All right. There we go. All right. Let's watch this.
Man and woman of God go from this. How did this man and woman of God go from this power couple to this? When Kiana and Ronell first met, it was love at first sight. The two of them were inseparable. They both were these philanthropic entrepreneurs. She owned her critique design salon, and he was an entrepreneur in the insurance business, doing extremely well for himself. And when the two merged, of course, they would be a power couple. However, some felt that they didn't give themselves enough time to heal and reflect from previous relationships. It's been alleged that both couples had just recently divorced, and people just felt like, they needed some time to do a little groundwork emotionally on themselves that may have not been resolved. But the two were in love, so they went forward with their marriage anyway. The wedding in and of itself was a production, and everyone loved it and had fun participating. After the couple jumped the broom, Ronell let his wife know that he felt like he had been called to the ministry, and she stood by his side every step of the way.
For the ministry, we just sit there and allow the Holy Spirit to minister to us. And he said, for his glory. He just reminded us of what the goal is for the ministry. What's the mission? What does God want out of this? And it's just to reconcile his people, his saints, back to him, so that they can be used for his glory. That's how the name was birthed, so that reconcile people back to God so they can be used for his glory.
Things appear to be on the up and up. They appear to be going great. They had a beautiful blended family that they even merged with their business.
Kiana is grand. Together their children Shazam. Meet the birds.
America, you ain't gonna want to miss this. This is my wife, Kiana.
Mrs. Bird.
Hey,
This show is going to start and it's going to be exciting. Hey, son, you all right? Hi, baby. How you doing? Mwah. Every single episode is going to be exciting, full of action, impact. We talking big business. We talking about big family. Meet the Burns. Get off my couch. You know better than that, right? Hey, so like I said, we're going to be touching from every angle. Business, family, business. Hey, now, you know, give them where the Kool-Aid and carpet do not mix.
However, no matter how great things appeared to be on the outside, the two had things going on the inside. Kiana would sometimes take to social media to vent her heartache and frustrations.
Of emotional pain. And I think it's due to the fact that I have a big void in my life. And the void I have in my life is due to the fact that I have an absent parent, which is my father.
And Ronell at times would do the same.
We're going to go on about our business. And as we sat in the truck and we said, hey, you know what? If we're going to get a divorce, let's be civil. You know, we got kids, we got businesses. We said, well, let's just sit down and just talk about how this all going to work out. Meaning from a business aspect, we didn't talk about why we should stay together. You know, we love each other. None of that conversation was being had. We was done with each other.
In an effort to save their marriage, the couple decided to venture to Atlanta for more opportunities and like a fresh start. Once in Atlanta, Ronell hit the ground running, you know, making business and entrepreneurial moves, really shaking things up and making a name for himself there.
By the way, what, 1.5 million? 1.5. He'll be over 2 million. He'll be over 2 million and what? I don't know, a sneeze. Your ass be a 3.
But unfortunately, Kiana appears to be having more of a hard time adjusting to the move. She can be seen on Facebook expressing how she sort of missed her family and her life back in St. Louis.
I just felt the need to hop on here for just a moment, not long at all, and kind of just talk about, you know, life changing, positive people that's on my timeline, and they help me through my gloomy days, because yes, I do have them. You know what I'm saying? Honestly, if I'm being totally, perfectly honest, I'm having one right now. And the reason I'm going live is because sometimes you got to reach out and tell people that you need love, you need support, you need care, you just need a hug. And honestly, you guys, I need that. I need that right now. I mentor so many women. I encourage so many women. I pump life and positivity in so many women. But sometimes I need that myself. You guys, I'm asking you one thing, because I really need it right now. I need prayer. I need prayer. I need strength. I need love. I do. Stay encouraged. I'm going to go in my home, go in my little prayer room. I'm going to talk to God. Y'all pray for me. And I promise I'm going to keep praying for everybody else that need encouragement.
Shortly after this aired, unfortunately, Kiana took both her life and the life of Ronell. To be honest, I think the pair really loved each other, but I think they got swept up in the high of being these business owners, you know, newfound wealth and success. And we're trying to capture that same high and just went chasing waterfalls. I think they had a great setup where they were in St. Louis. And I think just the pressure, that initial pressure, just took her under. I really wish she would have reached out for help, because if she had, I think she would still be here today, and so would he. And I just send my condolences to their 8 children.
Wow.
I wish I
Wow.
could say this was uncommon, but it's not.
You know what? I watched the entire thing. The thing that got me is the last sentence you said, Christina. There are 8 children.
Yeah.
So she went and took
my
herself.
heart just dropped when you said that. My
Oh
heart
my
dropped when you said
God.
they 8 children. I was like, whoa.
You took yourself out, your husband out, and left the world with your 8 children. Christina, go ahead and say what you have to do. You can open the floor up after you speak on that. But thank you for always investigating these stories and bringing it to us. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So, yeah, go ahead. Give us some insight.
What shocked me most, honestly, were the comments. The comment section of the video.
Mhm.
The amount of people that really perceive reaching out to help as her making that post at the end. When I said I wish she would have reached out for help, I meant like a psychiatrist or even a counselor or a pastor. But to weigh those, when your mind is that mentally stressed and strained, to seek social media for help, to me, is not the appropriate thing to do. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I really feel like she was out of touch with reality. And I don't know if this rolls over into the mental health aspect, but I think she was out of touch for the reasons that you all gave earlier. Because when you ask, like, well, everybody's asking, like, what happened? What happened? To be honest, to this day, no one can pinpoint anything. People have been speculating, oh, he was sleeping with me and he was cheating on her. Oh, this, so that. But no one has ever come forward. So I don't believe anything was physically happening. I just don't. I believe that, like you all said, people pass down these stories and over exaggerate the numbers. And then she's pairing it with what she's seen on TV, what you see with on social media, pairing it with maybe the friction because she had a fractured relationship with her own father. And Ronell took the blame and she took his life in her own.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's
terrible.
Jay, I see you shaking. Jay was just I was looking over at you, Jay, and you were just sitting back on the couch with your mouth wide open, like, what the hell did I just watch? So Jay, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I actually was just typing in the chat, letting somebody know that they were saying, I guess Sugar Bum was saying that, just kind of scoffing at the idea of how common this is. Maybe murder suicides. Sorry, I'll try to rephrase that for next time.
Yeah, right.
Maybe unaliving / self deletions are not as common, but it is common for women to delete others under the guise of some sort of mental illness. More typically postpartum depression. I see that being used a lot. And I have to give a slight disclaimer, though I hate disclaimers, but I will give one. I have never had the pleasure of having children, and I do know, as somebody who does have just a slight psychology background, I do know that postpartum is a real thing. It is the result of real processes happening inside of a woman's body after having a child. I respect that. I give credence to that. However, at the end of the day, I do think that people are responsible for addressing their mental health issues. I think that first time you had that negative, pervasive thought where you said, I could see myself harming my children. I think that's when you have the responsibility to do everything in your power to fix that. Because from there, we can't just say, oh, this is a tragedy, this type of thing happens. No, it's not okay. It's not okay. Just like I read a couple years ago, this lady literally jumped out of a building with her 2 children in tow. And everyone was like, oh, postpartum is so this. It's like, come on, people. Like, at some point, you have to hold people accountable. You have to, because if we don't, we all have something that has happened to us or something that ails us in some way that we could use as an excuse for something. So with the situation that we're talking about that Christina reported on, this young lady, you have 8 children. At the end of the day, whatever you feel like you're going through, these issues that you feel like can't be resolved in your marriage, there are a trillion other options you had that you purposely skip over. You could have just went through with the divorce. You could have tried your best to get some sort of joint custody thing with your husband. That kids to be, relatively. You could have done all those things, but instead you do this extreme thing. And one last thing, I'll land the plane. I found it interesting, Christina, how you mentioned whereas a normal person would say, okay, I'm experiencing these negative thoughts and these negative feelings, I would seek professional help or spiritual counsel. And instead, she just consults social media. To me, that's giving very just typical quintessential modern woman, attention, seeking attention from social media. Now, does it typically go this extreme? Maybe not, but it's just it's a byproduct of the constant just worship of women that society does all the time. This idea that women are infallible and everything we do is someone else's fault, or it's not just genuine bad intentions. No, sometimes people are just bad people and they do bad things or they think bad thoughts. So that was what I was thinking when I was over here shaking my head.
So let me bring this up real quick. So as a whole, right, the entire conversation tonight is we're speaking about the DV against men. And I know sometimes that we're veer off a little bit because sometimes that role could take us that way. So I did want to get Lost in Translation's thoughts on the conversation as a whole, or rather the last conversation or this one. I think they're all connected. I think that what this woman did to this man was horrible. I think that the conversation we were having earlier is also horrible as well. So they're all connected. And so I want to get your thoughts, and then we'll get Dr. Nkumbe in here as well to get his thoughts, and then we'll move around the room. So Lost in Translation.
Yeah, I'm not going to be long. I'm going to give you 2 minutes of thunder. Look, this is very common, and I'll explain to you what's going on. Most women are communal creatures. They do better when they're together. And what happens is when you pull somebody who has a group of people that she relies on for support away from her, it makes it difficult for her to cope. And in this particular situation, they have 8 kids. But if you really listen to what she's saying, she misses her husband. You know what I mean? He's out wheeling and dealing or whatever. But the main purpose for her existing as a wife in that particular situation has been taken away from her. So that's the reason why she reached out to social media, because that was her community. Whether it was online or not, it's relevant. You know what I mean? Normally, if we were with your regular family, you can have people to come in, sister-in-laws or cousins or whatever. They can come in and help, alleviate some of that stress of having 8 kids. And sometimes we'll say, well, she should have went to therapy. Well, who's going to look after the kids? That's how some women look at things. You know what I mean? I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. But we like to just say, hey, you should seek therapy. But sometimes your community is your therapy. Your community is your help. But in this particular situation, just on the outside looking in, she missed her husband. Her husband is who she should be talking to. You know what I mean? That's who she was yearning for. And since she said, I can't have you, nobody will have you. And she took him out. You see what I'm saying? That's what I'm looking at from the outside.
Can I just ask a question really quick?
Yeah.
Yes, I know you said like she misses her husband, right? But in the extended version of that clip, she was saying like, I want to keep growing. I want to be with someone who's willing to keep growing. Well, that's what he was out trying to do, keep growing and going. But then she unalives him because she misses him because he's out growing like she wants him to do. So what can he do?
I'm going to help you out with that. It's the intent. It's the intent. She wants to grow with him. I'll give you an example. Say, for instance, Christina, say, for instance, we were married and you told me, hey, look, I like flowers. So one day I came home with flowers, but I was mad and said, here your flowers. You know what I'm saying? The intent behind that is different versus, hey, you know what? I was thinking about you today. And you know what? It came, a rush came over me and said, you know what? Christina is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I remembered that you love flowers. So I went and got the very best flowers that I can find. And I wanted to take the time out and give you the multiple ways that I appreciate you. And then you give it the flowers. That is a total different intention. So whenever women say, I want men to grow with me, oh, I'll do this and progress or whatever. It's the intention that's behind that. She has an innate a desire to want to be with him by his side while they grow together. She doesn't want him to go out there and get it on his own so he can get all the glory. You see what I'm saying? She wants to be by his side and also reap the benefits of that glory. So the intention that's behind that makes everything, that makes the difference. Does that make sense? Did I explain that, Kurt?
Now, let me hold on, get Dr.
To your
Nkumbe.
satisfaction.
Let me get Dr. Nkumbe first. Dr. Nkumbe, what are your thoughts as a whole? What you coming in, brother?
Oh, good evening. Hello to the panel and those in the chat. Thanks for the opportunity. Actually, my point is for the previous video. And actually, I just did something in the back chat because we were talking about why do men abuse? And I just launched and I've specifically named 3 people. And it's interesting because I almost got 3 different responses. And that's how abuse works. One man is going to respond to it. One man is going to be like, oh, my bad, or you should have, well, shit, you should have said something. And one would just kind of sit numb. And over history, there's really not been a major increase in men being abused. The reporting of men being abused has been an increase. The reporting has become more normalized. The more social media, the more information is available, and less shaming men for coming forward. So because we still get called simps, right? Michael Blackson would say, them bitch ass niggas, right? We still get called names. So slowly but surely we're able to talk about it more. But the actual numbers are almost 50-50. If you think about it, back in the day when men really stuck to that rule, you don't hit back, there are women punching you on the chest, slapping you in the face. And then there's different forms of abuse, not just physical, rejecting your body to me as my wife, or emotionally not being there for me, laughing at me, talking crazy to me. And then certain situations at work, when we talk down to, punch down, kicked while we're down. There's all types of abuse that men have to deal with all day long, but they've never reported it because it was seen as a weak thing to do. But like I said, now social media says talk more about it, less stigma behind it. And then I disagree with some of you saying, you let a woman hit you. I saw some women who were in the swim meet and they won. Now they were a little bit masculine, but they won. So you never know what type of woman these days might hit you. And then it depends on the situation you're in. If you're raised in the hood and a sister has all brothers, raised by all brothers and cousins, she's going to beat that ass just like her brother would do whatever. Okay, so if you're in that arena, then it's a natural thing to fight back because you don't see the woman in her, you see Shaniqua or whoever the hell she is. And so that's who you're fighting. But people see that as, oh, how did you hit a woman? She wasn't thinking about you as some whatever when she hit you. So it depends on your environment. And I think a couple people on the panel said, pending who you're with, why would you even be with someone who's being abused? And my last part about it is, please keep in mind, I feel like I lost in translation my voice says, my last I got that from you, lost in translation. My last, please understand, I disagree with the guys who are saying, when at the time, women historically in our generations, from the oldest on the panel, I don't know if that's our Payne, whoever the oldest here, whoever's up in their 60s and 70s, whoever the oldest here, all the way to the youngest, women have been subjected to being sexually objectified from the time she was a little girl. And when you start adding all those objectifications, if you put a penny or a nickel in a jar for every time a female had to deal with psychological, emotional abuse, by the time she's hitting you, that number is skyrocket. I'm not excusing it. What I'm saying is, it's not just a matter of looking at some female saying, oh, well, no, the psychological abuse that we don't see. So when she gets the courage to hit you, by the time she gets the courage to fight, that's not just because she saw it on the show the other day. That is built up frustration. And men have it too, but it's just a little different. I just want to speak to that psychological edge.
All right. Anybody else want? Information man just came in. Thank you for coming in, my brother. So information man, you can speak on it, then we'll go around the room. Go ahead.
You're muted, information man.
You're muted.
You're muted. You're still muted.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm just trying to fix that. Thank you. I just wanted to say that I think a lot of our problems that we have, just like the good doctor said, a lot of this is psychological. It's learned behavior that sometimes is passed down from generation to generation. Because I'm speaking on black people here. We have a lot of unresolved trauma that we have passed to our children, that we have been experienced. And I think in some ways, psychologically, as much as it doesn't sound good, I don't really think black people in general really like each other. And I think sometimes when you don't like each other, because you don't really like yourself, then you project onto those that are closest to you that look just like you. And I think it comes down to respect and love for one another. And I don't know if we really have a lot of love for one another. I mean, look how hard it is for us to come together and do things on one accord and be on code and work together and not backbite on each other. And it doesn't mean that it's going to change when it comes to relationships. And I think the doctors hit on something else as well that I have to agree with, that there are a lot of women that have been abused by family members. We don't talk about that much, about the incest that goes on with family members touching our women. And women grow up as sexual objects and being abused in some way psychologically or sexually. And then when you come along as a man who wants to covet her and get to know her, some of those projections that she has, you got a lot of countertransference, things of that nature, it will come on to you. I think men, we have these same problems too, based on what we've experienced, our view of women, our view of the world, and how we see ourselves. And we can project things onto the opposite sex as well. But I think at the end of the day, to close it up in a nutshell, one of our problems as men is that we're not great advocates for our issues. So it's true that a lot of men are getting abused out here, but they weren't reporting it in the past. I think it's generational. I think this younger generation may be more comfortable, more in tune with their feelings. I don't know, more in tune that it's okay to say it because we got all these different genders and gender definitions that people are feeling more comfortable to say, yeah, I was abused by a female. Okay. Whereas back in the day, men were told to suck it up, take it, don't touch women. And that's just the way it is. So I think there is some intergenerational differences in how we see this as well. But I think men, we need to be our best advocates. And that's the reason why people in general in this society don't care about men. Because men, we die in silence, and we often do not advocate for ourselves the way our female counterparts do. And as much as we talk about, I'm going to say this again, as much as breast cancer is very highly promoted in terms of what's happening to women, we tend to forget that men are the ones that are dying of cancer more than women. Yet there is no campaign in the NFL or any of these sports leagues that talk about prostate cancer and what's happening to men. Because nobody gives a damn about us because we don't advocate for ourselves. And we got to look at ourselves, too. I'll land on that plane for now.
If I can just respond to Clement and actually apologize to the panel and to those in the chat. Because you know how we have those conversations about men and we're advocating for men. And then there's always someone, as in what I did, but the women's and they were abused. The reason I want to make this significant is because the women raise us. The women raise the boys. And so even though it's a man's issue, but it's coming from the root or the stem of a woman's perspective, and some of that abuse is passed on. You know, it's like your daddy ain't shit, but my relationship with my dad is fine. The relationship with my father is fine, but they pass that on. So boom, where that comes from is her abuse stuff. And then I'm like, well, in addition, because I want to honor the men's space. So thank you, Clement, for calling that out. I do appreciate that. So in addition to what the men are dealing with, I just wanted to highlight that the reason that root of it's okay to hit you is because it's coming from other historical, psychological, stored emotions. Thank you.
Okay. So in regards to this video, this is a tragic occurrence, but like, I don't feel sorry for this woman, like at all, like not in the least. This is how most, I mean, I get it. You want to be the power couple, but guess what, boo-boo? You ain't Beyonce. All right. But you got Jay-Z, and that wasn't enough. You had all these wonderful kids, but that wasn't enough. She didn't just want to be a wife. That's the problem here. And this is the reason that I constantly say, and I hate to specifically narrow this down, but like I don't see other cultures doing this. If you get the winner that you say you want, play your position. Not everybody is built to have a true alpha masculine black man in his masculinity, dude. Like, not everyone's built to have a winner. And unfortunately, with the trauma that's been passed down, because I can 100% agree with that. But with the trauma that's been passed down, this is the reason at the top levels, the highest producing men are getting picked off, because no one has time to deal with this. Like, yes, he's gone. You know what? Every ultra rich husband is gone. They're all gone. This is what you said you wanted, and you got it. And then you made these kids that didn't ask to be here, and then took away the provider and yourself because you're selfish. This community, it's not even a community. Stop saying it's a community. This is the level of selfishness within the community. And we want to make excuses. You can put out whatever excuses you want. That was a producer black male. That man was on his purpose, in his lane, killing it, competing, and winning. And she took that away from your so-called community. What about that? One of the good ones.
Then you have to ask yourself, does society care about men in general, but black men that are on their purpose? I say no. We'll praise the thugs. We'll praise the dudes that got out of jail and did some stuff. We can see it here on YouTube. You got people that are grifting black people who had shady passes. But then you have the young man, you have young men who are doing the right thing, and very little popping circumstances said about them.
Yep.
I don't think we really give a damn about the guys that are doing the right thing because they're corny.
Yep.
That's their battle cry.
We don't want to win. We don't want to win.
Can I ask
It's
a
just what
clarifying
it is.
question?
Like these, there's individuals that want to win, but like as a collective, if you want to call this a community, the community does not want to win, because this is the first time I'm hearing about this story. Granted, I don't watch the news, but this is triggering to me, because that's she killed black excellence, stabbed it in the heart, and we're gonna sit here and dance around this and make all these excuses because she was upset that she didn't get to be in the co-passenger seat. You in the castle. The queen is in the castle. You see her at events, but she's in the castle. She is not out on the battlefield. She is not doing anything but being in the castle. I don't understand where this thought process comes from, where we've gotten to a point where we are so selfish that we can't deal with being in the shadow of somebody who wins, but we want high value men. That's what you say you want. But you're and those kids did not ask to be here. They were in a happy family, and she took that away from them and left them here alone. That is the ultimate form of selfishness. And she's the mother.
Can I ask a clarifying question to Christina, if I may? From what I recall in the video, this was I think a second marriage. They were both married at one point and divorced, and they got married relatively quickly. Are all the children the product of their union, or did they both have kids, and is this a combined family?
They had together in the grandchild. Yeah, they only had two together, and the rest were from the previous relationships and one grandchild.
Okay. Because a lot of times I hear in these spaces too that, for these men, why choose women who have kids or exes or whatever? Why choose someone like that when you're supposed to have the pick of the litter and get with someone who doesn't have? And again, the fact that we don't know what that prior marriage was like, again, not excusing it, Ray, or for anybody. I'm not But the thing, we got to look at all this, into effect. This isn't the Brady Bunch here. You know what I mean? But whatever she brought into was brought into this relationship, that could have been from the previous. We don't know. I think there's a lot of variables here. It's tragic, absolutely, especially for those kids, regardless how they got here. But I did recall you say in the video that a lot of people said that this was rushed for whatever reason. They just recently got divorced, and then they had this whirlwind relationship, and it looked like, it's almost like for a lot of people, they fall in love with the wedding and not put enough emphasis on the marriage. But the wedding, there's just a lot of things that I'm seeing here that I don't think we're necessarily qualified to unpack here. But those two things kind of stick out, that this wasn't just, this was kind of thrown together, kind of haphazardly, and these things happen. So
I have a question for you, Mr. Bennett. A few months ago when we had barbershop, I told you, what did I say to what are one of the rules that I have for my son in dating?
No hood boogers. No.
Right. No booger wolves.
No
booger wolves.
And he should not that we're against them, but he should not date a single mother. And I have to clarify why I tell him that. I tell my son that because why would you date a woman with children who has gone through abandonment issues with the man that left her with the child, going through issues and traumatic experiences by listening to the child scream all night, going through the situations of not being able to afford the child, not being able to afford childcare, mom and dad and turned their back on her, right? She don't have no experience with life. And then you come up, and you marry this woman and she ain't never sat on nobody's couch. It could end up just like this. She could be like, you know what? The last one left me, but I would rather take myself out and his ass too before I let him leave me. And you could get the results of what you just saw in this video. And that's why I tell my son, no, because most women, let's think about it. If we had to put a number on it, and I'll let somebody else chime in on this. If we had to put a number on how many women in our culture, how many women actually go see a psychiatrist or a doctor or go sit down with Dr. Nkumbe after they've experienced traumatic experiences from abandonment issues, daddy issues, mama issues, family issues, postpartum depression. Dr. Nkumbe, you're here. What? Give me a number off the top of your head, or you may know the number. What number of women actually go through those experiences and actually go through a complete healing before they move on to another relationship?
Well, in our culture, the numbers are low. Like, so I had to Google whatever they do for my website, the Google analysts, whatever. They look up to see who's seeing what and doing what. 85% of executive women, 85% that are Caucasian, go to seek help for their relationships. 85% Caucasian women. Black community, 32%, at least through the Google, not just for me. I'm talking about the overall community, because we're trying to see who needs the help. 32% were Black women. But those same 32%, when I meet with them, what they said is they've tried other things first. Church, healing, chakras, spiritual stuff, even sexual healing, like body work. So they've tried other efforts, but they found those things not to work for their mental health with depression and all that. But when they go to the doctors don't give them information. They just either try and give them pills or some regimen that's going to put them in the system, like make them a lifetime customer. So then they refuse the services because of the stigma, not just because of the stigma, but because of the health consequences that come with it.
Wow. See, so y'all see what I'm saying? So why would you want to be with a woman and court a woman or date a woman who has not faced traumatic experiences? And then when you come into the fold, right? I remember a song by Music Soul Child. He said, "I'm not to blame for the pain that was caused by previous cats." Right? And he's talking about a woman who has dealt with a lot of bad experiences with other men, and now she wants you to save her and not have no flaws. She needs you to be Mr. Perfect, or your ass may be Mr. Sleep. So,
like Unfiltered, I was gonna say we have this concept in it's a concept called marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to get a license. And when you're in high school, you take driver's ed.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pass a test, right?
Right.
There's many things in our society that you have to pass some type of test or do some type of counseling for before you get into it, right?
Right.
But marriage is the one thing in this society, plus having kids, that there is no requirement for you to go see a counselor or have someone that is a partial party to sit down and say, will this be a fruitful marriage based on whatever issues both man or woman may have? Why is it that our society doesn't require that? Plus, to have kids, we should be requiring these things. And then the question it's not really a question, but question is a question. You know, a lot of things, we talk about a lot of things on YouTube about these issues, right? But the one thing that I don't see is enough advice, like you said about your son, enough comprehensive advice about what young men need to do to make sure that the woman that they're with, that they vet. Now, I'm not talking about this on the top, on the undersurface. I'm talking about on the deep level. What do you need to do?
Mm-hmm.
I told you we have in my organization, we have a program called Project Alpha. And these are the sort of things that we do when we deal with our youth as it relates to teenage pregnancy, getting involved with females. What are the consequences? I think if anything that the manosphere should be doing, I'm not saying that they haven't done this, but I think the drum needs to be beaten harder about our youth avoiding these pitfalls, because we're going to see a lot more death or people being deleted in this way, because I don't think we're healed as a people spiritually and emotionally. We are really I'll stop there.
No,
You should have kept
solid.
it going.
And
You
really,
was getting warm, sir.
Can I add one
You was
thing
on to
real
the
quick?
answer, sir.
yeah, I want to get this super chat out the way real quick, and then we'll get back to the conversation. And then we're about to wrap it up in a minute anyway. I want to get y'all out of here at a decent time.
But I want to hear everyone's thoughts about that. What I said about that in particular, leading to what you had brought up in the first place. Black Men Unfiltered.
Absolutely. Clint McGray with a $5 super chat. He said, y'all do know that the media buried this story because of the fact it was her deleting her husband than herself. She was obsessed as an influence, guys. Clement also came back and said, crazy. $2 super chat. BMU, I'm not donating to your coffee anymore. Laugh out loud. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Clement.
my
I appreciate
goodness.
you, man. For your comments. All right, so so Information Man, I brought it up, but Information Man also alluded to a few. So let's go around the room here, and we'll call this our thoughts as we're closing in. And we'll start with at the top here. J Mac, what are your thoughts on what Information Man was saying and me and Information Man?
So what so I kind of caught like the aft end of it.
Oh, okay. I was
So
saying that I told my son not to date a single mom that hasn't gotten therapy and that hadn't got her mind right, has not been mentally prepared to be in a relationship. So I told him, just since the numbers, Dr. Nkumbe just said the numbers are so low when it comes to us going sit on someone's couch getting the help, that we're not doing it. So there's no reason to be with a person that hasn't gotten the help, and you can't go in there and be Mr. Fix It. So what are your thoughts?
yes, and now I remember also even what Information Man was saying as well, because I was he was cooking with hot grease, and for some reason I just like zoned out for a second when you said my name. I'm like, what was he just saying?
You're
I
right.
loved his point about how in all other aspects of society we have to do some sort of assessment or some sort of examination before we are qualified to hold certain positions. But yet the two most important titles or positions that anyone can ever embody are parent and spouse, and we don't have to pass the test for those things. So it's really tough, right? Like my dad, he's a man of, he loves his little one-liners and parables, and sometimes he'll just say, Pumpkin, life is hard. Like and sometimes that's just enough right there. But what he was getting at is when we're talking about these generational traumas, that takes so much work. That takes undoing, unlearning, and relearning so many things. Like we mentioned, the silent generation, why they were silent, this idea that it was taboo to speak about one's feelings and thoughts. And then even today, and I'll admit I'm kind of guilty of it myself. I've made videos about Andrew Tate. I like a lot of Andrew Tate's ideas. And even I kind of got sucked into he one thing that he's a huge proponent of is stoicism in men. And to an extent, I do agree with that, but I also have to realize I think there has to be a delicate balance. Like be stoic in the times where maybe your strength is needed because obviously women are not naturally stoic. So when we need your leadership, reach for that. But when you need to release and when you need to express how something is affecting you, then please do it, men, because the only thing that's going to come of it if you don't do it is the types of, whether it's abuse, and obviously it's not just men, women act on repressed, abuses and things like that as well. But all that's going to happen is it'll just be a recurring cycle. So I hate the fact that we don't take parenting and marriage more seriously in this society. I also did agree with what Ray was saying. Um, in if you have a good solid marriage, that is all you can ask for. Like that you can't ask for perfection. You can't ask for, well, if you're providing, then but I also need you here all the time. Like it doesn't quite work like that. Coming from someone who would know, my partner, my boyfriend, he's a firefighter, so he's on call for like 24 hours at a time. So when he goes to work, he's gone for an entire 24 hours. I've gotten used to it now, but at first that was really hard for me. I was like, "Whoa, I'm just here by myself, I don't even get to look forward to you coming home in the evening." But I had to realize that's his provision. He's going out and he's doing what he needs to do as a man. And the probably the last thing he wants to be worried about is me at home missing him. It's like just stay the course, respect what your man is doing. But yeah, I think Information Man was really on a roll. We have got to address these traumas, and we have to be honest about them on both sides, men and women. And I love how he said that it seems like Black people don't like each other. That was very profound to me, because I agree. I feel like the way we have these conversations sometimes, it just doesn't feel like it's always coming from a place of love.
Well, can I just say, part of the problem is that when we speak truth to power or truthful about our issues, people don't want to deal with it, and they become very upset. We see it between women and men on these YouTube streets, where men have an honest grievance about what they're not happy about, and the women won't listen. And then same thing when women speak their mind, men won't listen because we feel you don't listen to us. So we shut off, and we have to understand that men and women are different. Men, we just kind of shut down, where women may keep, keep going. We're just going to shut down, and you can keep talking, and we'll just act like you're not there.
All right, lost in translation.
I've been saving this one, Jay. I'm going to get you. I'm gonna take what Information Man said, and I'm gonna wrap this up, and I'm gonna put a bow on it. I'm gonna say what I got to say, and this gonna be it. Here's my thing. I don't think we are running on the right software, and I'll explain to you. You can take certain software and run it on certain hardware. You know what I mean? I'll give you an example. I just switched over to Apple. All my stuff is Apple now, and everybody says it just works better. I agree, it does. Now, it gives me the ability to do things that I couldn't do on Windows, but I was raised on Windows. You know what I'm saying? And basically, it's the same thing. But here's the thing. I was also trained on Linux. You understand what I'm saying? And Linux is the underpinning for both Windows and Apple. Okay? Same way with religion, okay? When you were raised up as a child in religion, that standard programming should still be in there if you were introduced to it. You be nice to people. You know what I mean? That type of thing. You don't talk down on people. You don't go around
Golden rule.
gossiping,
Golden rule.
the basic standard stuff. You know what I mean? So when I hear people say certain things, it lets me know that the programming is off. You know what I'm saying? When I hear women speak and they say, I shouldn't have to work my fingers to the bone helping a man. My thing is this: why are you here? Why were you created? You were created to help. You know what I'm saying? Just like a man is supposed to provide for his family, his counterpart should also be in his image and provide and put everything into the pot so nobody feels shorted. Now, if you need something out of that pot, have a discussion. You see what I'm saying? But my thing is this: people are afraid to have the discussions because they don't know who they dated. They don't trust that person with their emotion. They don't trust that person with the fact that they're going to do right by them. So what they do is they skirt around hard issues and they pretend like this stuff doesn't work. I'll give you another example. A long time ago, women used to be extra feminine. And what I mean by that, they had this sunshine about themselves. They carried themselves a certain way. They spoke a certain way. So guess what? It made something happen to you as a man. Carry yourself a certain way as a gentleman. You know what I'm saying? When she held her arm out, you kind of magically raised your arm and she put her hands up under yours and walked side by side next to you. If it was raining and you had an umbrella, it's just something in you just say, let me go ahead and put this umbrella up. And I'm going to make sure she walks on a certain side of the curb so she doesn't get hit. Those are the things that are programmed in men that they innately do. My question is, what have the women been programmed to do lately? You see what I'm saying? Back in the day, women, let me finish. Back in the day, women used to speak to men a whole lot softer than they do now. And they manhandle and it's almost as if it's an invisible haze where they feel like they can interrupt or stop a man from making his point. You know what I'm saying? Or if what he's saying has no merit. Well, guess what? Men catch on to that. And eventually what you're going to do is you're going to get an individual or creation like me. I see what you do. I understand why you do it. But I'm here to tell you, I am not your enemy. Your enemy is the person who's hiding behind the shadows, telling you things that are not true. And I can see who it is. My thing is this: do you trust me enough that I love you enough to tell you the truth? That is the real issue. Not the fact that I'm not going to steer you astray. The fact is you have to trust me enough to know that I'm going to do what's best for you. That's the real issue. We have to get back to the place where we are actually trusting and believing each other. But in order for us to do that, we have to spend a certain amount of time with each other. It's basically proving ourselves to each other. And if we're so busy doing other things where we can't get to that place, then we're going to wind up with situations like this young man and this young lady. Well, they're no longer here and then their family has been broken. So my thing is this: gentlemen, be the best that you can be. Women, get back to being better. That's all I'm saying. And make sure that we treat each other right. Speak to each other with reverence as we should. And I promise you we'll get a whole lot better. Thank you so much, Black Man.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. Jay, you want to respond to that before we go to Reckless?
Yeah. So, it's an interesting kind of headspace that I'm in after you gave your piece, because, of course, the overwhelming majority of it, what disagreement can I possibly have? This idea that we need to work in tandem. We need to respect one another, both sexes, especially in the Black community. I know we use that word kind of loosely because sometimes it doesn't feel like there is one, but the Black collective, we have to make sure that we're doing that. But to one of the earlier points you made, I just the only pushback I would give is that I don't believe that women aren't supposed to work. I just think that the work that we're supposed to be doing is not the same type of work that the man needs to be doing. When I said a woman should not be working her fingers to the bone, I mean in a sense of leaving her home for several hours a day to make money for somebody else, because that's the only time you do that. If you work for yourself, you can work from wherever you would like, So you're working for somebody else, leaving your home, sending your children to daycare or hiring nannies, hiring maids or whatever else for the actual work that you could and should be doing as a woman. I should be at home raising my children. I should be here preparing my home for my husband to come home from work, which is not as simple as some people reduce it down to. I actually was just joking with my boyfriend yesterday. When he was at work yesterday, I was trying to hang some curtains, and that's why there aren't any behind me. It took me all day long, and I still wasn't able to do it. I went to the store 3 separate times, and that's not atypical to go back and forth to the store, spending money on things like groceries and just household items that we need, because I realized that my role is a helpmate, whereas he leads financially to pay the bulk of course, providing the roof over my head and this kind of thing. And I have a more supportive role. But of course, to everything else, I 100% agree. I just think that when you mention that air of femininity that we used to see from women, I totally agree. The only thing I'll say is I know it's not popular in red pill spaces, which I do. I've already said it before. I agree with a lot of red pill ideology. But one thing I have to push back is you do need to provide a space for women to exude what it is you're wanting them to do. Otherwise, they're just going to adapt. We're human just like the rest of you guys. You know, we're human too. We adapt to our environment. So if our environment is hostile, if our environment is the same way that you were designed to shoulder the responsibility and to shoulder kind of the stress of, geez, how is the mortgage going to get paid next month? When I have to shoulder that stress, it doesn't look the same. Whereas a man can probably wear it well, because I do think that you guys were designed in that way. It's not going to look as good when I'm that stressed. When that's on the forefront of my mind. Whereas I would much rather be in my true purpose and the true work I should be doing, which is being your woman, being your support mate, your helpmate, helping you like if you have an idea or a goal to say, babe, I want to get into real estate. I'll be that person that's looking up 100 articles of how to start getting into real estate. That type of thing where you're still leading, but I'm just helping, you know?
Let me, Black man, I'm gonna go ahead and address this. When I say working and helping, there's this thing that I see what people do where they say, well, men's supposed to do the bulk of the work. Okay. Men find pride in doing things like that. Oh, you're supposed to do this. Well, here's the thing. There's a situation with women's health where they automatically assume that Black women don't need as much anesthesia because they can handle more pain. You understand what I'm saying? So with that, we're putting an exorbitant amount of abuse on women because we think in our mind that they can take more pain so we don't have to spend as much anesthesia on them. Well, guess what we do to our men? We do the same thing to men that we do to women in the medical field. Oh, he's just built to take on the load. How do you know? You know what I mean? For all we know, it could be just rhetoric. And that's another reason why Black men in particular don't live as long as women, because we automatically assume that Black men are just built for it. You have the shoulders for it. And then when we die early, then what? You know what I'm saying? Life is a marathon, not a sprint. You know what I mean? And my thing is it's think about this. There's a small percentage that you could have been the opposite sex at birth. And because of that particular moment, your life takes a different path. And if you think about it, if you were put in that position, would you want to be put in that position all because of that one little spark that switched it over for you? I'm an advocate of treating people how I would want to be treated. And my thing is we have to stop the shenanigans and all this, men should do this and women should do this. Do what you're built to do, but don't pass on the rhetoric of all this other stuff because we heard it before. It's like I mentioned earlier about this position about Black women can be able to take more pain and anesthesia because of what somebody else has said. Well, Black men are dying at a disproportionate rate because we're working them to the bone because other people said so. That's all I got to say about that.
Do you not well, and I think that that's a great way for you to conclude what you were saying. But I just feel like you said the one of the very last things you said was do what you were built to do, and then it seemed like you. So I don't think we're saying totally different things. So do you feel like you don't recognize, and I don't mean recognize something that is there. I mean, do you as yourself say, I recognize this to be true?
Right.
Do you recognize this to be true that men and women are different?
Well, I put it like this.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier, where you said you should have to work your fingers to the bone. If you weren't married, you would have had to pay rent anyway.
Well,
No, I
hold
would
on.
have lived. No,
There-
I would
there's-
have lived
Why
with
is
my
it all of a
father.
sudden?
Well, no, no.
There's a penis in the room, then the rules change. See, I'm challenging the stigma and the schema of our thought patterns. You
Well,
understand
we
what I'm
can-
saying? That's all I'm
we can-
saying.
we
Because
can
what
blow that
happens
whole-
is, hold on, Ray. What
Okay.
happens is it rubs up against us in the form of cognitive dissonance that causes that rub. You know what I mean? Sometimes we have to challenge the answers that we've been given. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Because there are plenty of women who brag on the fact, I pay my own bills and I don't need no man. Then all of a sudden you get a man, then I shouldn't have to take care of a man. But that's your man.
Well, of course,
Oh.
that hypocrisy, that level of hypocrisy, that does deserve to be challenged, right? But what about the women who don't say that? And to your point about I would have had to, and I know you aren't. I know this is not about me.
Yeah, that's
I know
just
you're
an
just saying in
example.
general.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, well, you would have had to do it. Well, in my case, that's not the case. I grew up with both of my parents. My parents are married. They have a humongous house in Kentucky that basically I could have the entire basement to until I get married. And
Right.
such has always been instilled in me. My dad, he's just, he's traditional in that way to say, hey, when you were a young girl up until the point that you're married, you're under my covering, you're under my provision. When I moved out of the house, it was my choice to do so.
Right.
And so now I'm under another man's covering and another man's provision. And so I've never had to work my fingers to the bone in that way. And when I said that as a woman you shouldn't do that, I was not inherently suggesting that a man should either. I was just saying that in that movie Fences or similar, there's other films that are similar to that concept. I just think that I think we can safely say as men that you guys desire feminine women, right? You desire a woman who has that softness and that air about her. And I'm just telling you, the same way that men don't mind to tell us things about you guys, and that's fine, and we listen. But I'm telling you, it is difficult, not impossible, but difficult to achieve that, to receive that from a woman if she feels like she is basically in the exact same role as you in the house.
My thing is, why do we value roles? That's all I'm saying. Why do we value roles?
They're not real. They're
That's
not
all.
real.
Roles reinforce indoctrination. That's all that is. That's all it is. Because here's my thing. We think for some reason, our women think for some reason that they're better than other women around the world. You got women who fish and they clean and they do everything else and they take care of their families. But for some reason in America, our women think that they're better than other
Well,
women.
those women aren't feminine. So you have to
Yes,
choose.
they are.
So,
Yes, they are.
Well,
Nothing is more feminine than a woman taking care of her family.
But see, once again, that's not different than what I said. I said my job as a woman, you can take out the word role and replace it with job. My job as a woman is to take care of my family, just like I take care of my man. My work here in this house is never done. There is always something that needs to be done, always some way that I can add value and support and supplement what my man has going on, or just taking care of him, period. Once we get to the point where we have children, I'll be taking care of them. A woman cooking and this kind of thing sounds like a role, but all it really is just a way that a woman takes care of her family. I'm making sure my family is fed. I'm making sure my husband's clothes are ironed before he goes to work. I'm making sure his shoes are shined and that he has lunch. So when you're talking about roles, it's not like, okay, we have a checklist, like you do this, this, and this. I think most of it comes naturally. And I don't think that's indoctrination. I think women have always understood that it's our job to take care of our men and families. And the men think about it, guys. We just talked about the biology of it all, right? How way earlier we were talking about the physicality. Men are naturally designed to be more physically assertive, dominant. Think about what comes along with that. Why in the past times were you hunters and the women were gatherers? Because you were designed to be able to better fare against a mountain lion than myself. Whereas I, in my eye for detail or whatever certain things that women are naturally inclined to, I'm more able to pick these berries. This berry looks like it's a little too dark. Maybe it's poisonous. I'm going to gather these things for my family. And once once the man and woman are comfortable in that, in your purpose, we can replace the word role with purpose. I think once we're in our purpose, I think we just operate better.
The problem is that women are glorifying their berries and saying these are my berries. You see what I'm saying?
But keep this in mind. I just want to say this because I gotta jump off the panel.
Come on.
Keep this in mind. Environment is dictating the behavior. We do not live in the same environment that our great grandparents lived in. Environment dictates that. So at one point in time, men had to hunt and gather, right? So so instead of putting, like you said, these social construct that roles do not exist, it's really the environment that you live in that dictates what you're going to do, how you have to do it to survive. We live in a modern day where what do we have today? Today we live in a world where you need, in some cases, a man and a woman to bring home the bacon. In some cases, because of the price of living. So you've got both, and that has affected the family dynamic, which I hate to say this. I hope women don't rick me over the coast for this. I think our women have become more masculine in a sense because they've had to get out there and work. When there was a time when the man worked, the woman was at home raising the family, staying within her feminine role or her feminine way of life. Now our women are out there having to work, and I think that's changed the dynamic because the environment has changed, and it now changes our behaviors, how we look at each other, and how we look at roles. I don't want to sound sexist here, but I do think it has changed the dynamics of behavior and behavior that, I mean, this might be a better word to say. When we say, oh, this woman is masculine, it's because society in the environment is dictating this new behavior that we may not like. I'm going to end there, but great discussion tonight.
I agree. And we just, and I'm
going to information, man.
I know Reckless is, no, I'm going to listen. I'm going to, I'm here to listen.
I'm going to give you roses. You can't leave yet.
Okay.
Stay right where the hell you are.
I just think he said exactly what I was saying. Unfortunately, you just can't have both, right? You just can't have both.
Yes, you can. Other cultures have both. Well,
it is a cultural thing.
My question for you is,
before you go, Reckless, I know you're finna cook. Before you go, I have a message for Jay Mack. Jay, this is for you, and it's nothing crazy because I wouldn't allow that. Somebody on my Facebook group just said, tell Jay she has 90 days to be engaged, and if she's not engaged in 90 days, I'm coming to get her.
Very bold statement there.
I did not know where that was going. I was so prepared to just clap back at somebody's feet. See, I'm flawed. I'm flawed because I was so ready to be like, now I know.
Right.
But
yeah.
tell that person they are too sweet. Thank you so much for the compliment.
So, whoa. One more. He said, ask her when is the wedding day.
Look, at this point,
I think we should not put the pressure on right now. That's a very sensitive issue. I would think. Don't put her on Front Street right tonight. I mean,
$100.
You're gonna cause a problem in the household when the man get home now. Let's not. It's supposed to be about protecting men tonight, not putting men in situations crosshairs.
He said he
I am such a proponent of God's timing for things that I've, what I'm saying? That's just how I look at it. I'm just like, you know what? I know what'll happen in God's divine timing.
Okay, so wait, hang on. Yeah. You don't have on this man, I'm sure this good man, hardworking man, fireman, You don't have a stipulation to say, look, you know, in a certain time, what we doing here? Like, there's no we're not on the clock here. You're just gonna just leave it
So
to not to get all in your
before,
business and everything. I'm
But
no,
we
no,
don't
I was
want this
about to
brother
say,
coming
when
home to an issue,
Bro,
brothers. Come on.
no,
It's
he's
called, what's the title
already
tonight?
put him on the screen.
listen. He is in the
Please.
back.
He a fireman.
Facebook said you got 90 days to get it together,
not.
sir. That's
Yeah.
what that is.
Hey,
He
let me
is
just.
he's in the back right now, and
Oh,
I'm sure
okay.
as loud as I'm talking, I'm sure he can hear me.
Tell him we
But
said what's up.
and also I'm a very transparent person. I don't mind to disclose that at all. I will admit some months ago I was in that headspace where I was like, okay, because I actually last month on the 28th I just turned 30. But here's the
Oh,
thing
you're
about
young.
me.
Oh yeah, okay.
You're very young.
Here's
Make
the
me
thing
sound like an
about
old man.
me is that
Mhm.
no. What makes me
Hey,
feel
you.
the way I was feeling is that my earlier 20s, where I think most women obviously would be, you know, we talk about it, right? You're most suitable and this kind of thing, is that I actually was severely overweight to the point that it was a health issue. And I think that my mindset had just changed in recent years. It's been about 4 years now that I've been down over 100 pounds.
Oh,
And so
wow.
I think that yeah, so I think
Right.
that beforehand in that earlier part of my life, I just wasn't, you know what I'm saying, in a good enough headspace to be like a wife and mom. And I also wasn't healthy enough to even probably carry a child with all this blood pressure stuff. So long story short, I was feeling the pressure because it's like okay, I'm getting older now, but I have to realize I'm kind of a late bloomer in that way. Like I'm not working with the same deck as like maybe some other women were, where they might have felt like they were more suitable even in their earlier 20s, and they just, you know, just dropped the ball with a bunch of guys. You know, such wasn't the case for me. So yes, he's great. I think we're in a great position, and I gotta y'all just keep y'all's fingers crossed and keep
Okay.
me in prayer.
We got you,
Absolutely.
darling.
Absolutely. All right. So reckless, you've been waiting.
So the for the conversation that was just going on, I just want to again, history nerd. Are we under the understanding that we have more history of women working, unless your family has conquered something, or your aristocracy, or your family conquered something, or your aristocracy? Literally, those were the only people that didn't work. Everyone else was a peasant.
That's true.
Throughout history. You look at any culture now, all the women work. It's a blessing and fortunate that you are in a situation where you do not have to, but to parrot that rhetoric to women who are peasants. I mean, most people are going to be peasants. Like, it's just the reality of what it is. Like, they're not going to not work. Like the economic system in which that we're in right now, it's not like you can make a plan to retire one of you first if you're so inclined. But I mean, we just saw the chick that got that killed that dude and herself. So I mean, let's be honest here. Like, those scenarios are rare. And touching on that unfortunate event that Christina brought to the front of the congregation for us, we have to look at worth. Some men, actually, I'm not even going to say some men, some people are worth more than others. That man getting deleted by his wife is the equivalent of everybody on this panel getting wiped out right now, where we're at right now.
Wow.
Think about that.
That's crazy.
Like, we need to start understanding what's going on. When I say that that's a blow, that is a blow. That's going to affect generations.
Mm-hmm.
That sets us back leaps and bounds in time. That's the same as if any of these men or any of these good women on this panel get taken out. It sets us back, if you want to call this a community, because while I do say that the Black community doesn't exist, I believe that there's a new one that's growing within the rubble that's going to rise. And when we lose these people, it matters. It is important. Like, regardless of whether, like, I jump on people's necks, I agitate people all the time. But, like, the reality of it is, if I take the time to speak to you, I see value in what you have to say, and I'm trying to understand what you're thinking. So for anybody that I speak to, for them to be taken out, I look at that as like, oh, well, this new budding community that's growing, that sets us back at this point. I don't believe we have a lot of the luxuries that other cultures have. We do not. I don't think that we are in a state where we can do excuses, which gets me to Information Man. What he's doing, boots on the ground, is very awesome. Because like we were supposed to talk about what we thought about that. I think it's great. I think that what needs to be added to that is a focus in on financial literacy. I honestly think as a culture, we need to have these young men going out into the world understanding how money works. They need to understand how to deal with women. And in all honesty, at the rate that we're at right now, we need to do what the Jamaicans did in Europe. We need to have like some sort of Pan-American Saturday school where we teach the skills where we know that communally we're lacking by people who have those skills, which means the men, like if we had something like that, I'd be willing to come in and talk to kids about money. I talk about money. I could talk to them about crypto all day. Like I could talk to them about business leadership. I could talk to them about leadership like all day. But we're at a certain point. What Information Man's doing needs to grow. Like it needs to scale out. Like every community should have one of those so that there is at minimum an option. And yes, you're going to have to do some extra work. Yes, you're not going to be out here in the streets. But you know what? They're probably not going to be snatching and grabbing if they're learning what they need to learn on Saturdays, and they have a focus. We have to bring back a value on education, and by education I mean real world education. One of my mentors, multimillionaire dude, never made it past 8th grade, owns one of the best electrical firms in this city. He built that. That's 8th grade education.
That's fantastic.
Great family, gets to do all this stuff. His electrical firm's highly like. We have to start looking at what needs to be done. And I think Information Man touches on that in a real world sense. And like that should be honored and it should be expounded upon. And literally like people should be trying to like figure out how that works. Like I want to know how that works. Obviously I don't have kids, so it doesn't necessarily affect me, but like I care about it enough to where it's like, hey, if there's something that we can do to derail these horrid outcomes that we're experiencing over and over again. What can we do? I think like a Pan-American, some sort of setup Saturday school where we get these kids in and just be like, hey, obviously we're going to have to figure out a way to make it free, but like give them the option where they can sit there and learn something of value that they can take with them throughout their lives. Like that'll actually matter. And these kids know that knowing those things, like knowing how money works, matters. But we have to be able to tie that back into like education also matters. Yeah. We just have to be intentional. We can't just be like, go to college. For what?
Yeah. Right. I just want to say before I drop off, I'm glad that you said that, Reckless, and much respect to you for that. I appreciate that. I just interviewed a young man from Prairie View A&M College. University, who is an engineering student, and I'm going to be bringing a bunch of engineering students from that university onto my show.
Oh, that's
and the interview that I had with him was to see why did he get into engineering. Now he's in computer engineering. I learned they've got a new facility that they've built down there, and I say this to say that, believe it or not, a lot of our young people are doing some brilliant stuff. However, it just doesn't get highlighted enough. And I got to admit that unfortunately, some of our people on the YouTube streets, we just don't gravitate towards that type of content. This brother, he came on my show. He shined all the way through. I interviewed him, and it's going to be great when I get all the other fellow students and female students. They have quite a few female engineers down in that university too. So I'm going to be happy to get them all together on a panel and talk. But that stream also showed me, unfortunately, what some of our people value on YouTube in terms of whether they're going to come over and watch that type of content. And it's a shame that type of content will grow very slowly in view, because
I know
you would think that we would want to promote that. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying that we have youth who are doing some great things, and we just need to highlight them a lot more as possible and connect with them and develop networks. And that's what I'm trying to do. So Black Men Unfiltered, thank you for letting me come up. I got to drop off because I got a really long day tomorrow, but this is a great conversation. And sister, it's obvious, Jay, that you have a good man. And when you get married, when you all get married or tie the knot, it's going to happen in fine time. Just keep believing in each other, learn a lot about each other. Because sometimes when people rush into marriage, it can lead to the marriage being short. When you rush into it, you can learn each other now so that you don't realize after you've been with that person for 20, 30 years or less that I'm with the wrong person because you didn't take the time to vet them now and understand who they are. So peace, everybody.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Later.
Y'all have a great evening. I got to get some sleep, but take care.
Absolutely. We're about to get out of here too. Christina, we'll let you last because you're our guest tonight. Payne, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, there was a lot of, can you guys hear me? There's a lot of good conversation. I agree with Reckless. Listen, in the modern era, it's going to take 2 incomes for most families, not some, most families. And I don't think it's really that complicated because it's really just a discussion. I did a video. I don't have a lot of subscribers, but I did a video on 10 steps for courting and vetting a woman for marriage. Right. And it had both some non-secular and secular items in it. And one of the things you have to have a discussion on is how you're going to divvy up the work. I mean, I think it's simple. I mean, there's a new tradition because the environment has changed. The culture has changed. But most men, I don't know about most men, but I don't see any issue. Like I wash my own clothes. Me and my wife, we wash our own clothes. Right. Not because it's a woman's job. I wash my own clothes because I count by how many clean pair of drawers I have, right? So we have a different schedule. And once my kids learn how to use the washing machine and dryer, they wash their own clothes. I got a couple of man caves in the house. I clean that. I don't ask my wife to clean that. But she does the dishes. I do the garbage. I mean, but she doesn't even work that much. But so we still divvy the work. My wife didn't have to work for almost 30 years. But she does some stuff at the church, so that's cool. She got enough milk money, so she don't have to ask me for anything. But I think it's simple. If you're gonna get married, you gotta have that discussion. And so if your wife has to do, and I hate the term 50-50, so let's not call it that shit, right? But if your wife has to work 40 hours a week and her husband has to work 40 hours a week, a man has to understand that she can't come back and do double duty in the house while you chilling out. And I think most men in that kind of conversation will understand that. I don't think it's if it's the right guy, and if he's not the right guy, the woman shouldn't marry him. And if she's not the right girl, she thinks she's gonna work and her 50 hours, her money is her money, and my money is her money. That shit ain't happening. Not in my household. She don't have to give me a check. But here's what we're gonna do with the money. Right? And you're gonna have a piece of money that's just yours, and I think these are just conversations. So people get married for the wrong reasons. They say that the divorce rates are very high, right? They say they're high because 70% women do. Yeah, I think half of those marriages shouldn't have happened in the first place. For example, that big thing with the woman couldn't say the vows. I think we start there. If you don't believe in the vows, don't get married. And a couple of things. One, the man was wrong for trying to marry a woman who can't even say the vows, and the minister should have never allowed them to get married in his church.
Yes.
He counseled them, and she couldn't do it even in counseling. He should say, listen, you guys are not ready for marriage. You can't do it here. I think it's some simple things. Now, let me just go ahead and jump to this and I can end. The black community, both men and women, and actually every community, we've been under a serious social engineering malaise, right? So we're being socially engineered. You have stimulus that make black men act one way, and there's stimulus that make black women act some way, and it draws us apart. And so we're like the most fiercest enemies of each other, and it doesn't make any sense. With all the common history that we have, I can't believe how much we pretty much hate each other. if you just go by these damn spaces and like in YouTube. And it's just, you know, and every woman, whether you marry a guy or not, women need to be covered by a man. And this is the difference between white feminism and black feminism. White feminists talk all that shit, but when it comes time to vote with their men, they vote with their men because they understand what covering means, right? So, and black women have lost that, and I don't know. So one of the things we have to do is start to talk about solutions to these kind of panels, right? What's a not a solution, not the solution, but what's a possible solution to us getting out of this malaise? And we got so many issues. I don't know how we, you know, it's going to take a lot of time, but we have to pick one and stay on point to say, we're talking about this particular issue and what are possible solutions that we want to give the audience to fix it. You know, and it might not be, you know, some people will take it, some other people will put it on the shelf, but that's what we need. I think that's what we need. You know, so anyhow, it's unfortunate about the lady offering the guy. That was horrible, but I still don't see how she went to go pray, and all of a sudden they talk about she shot him. You know, so because she said, I'm gonna go pray, I'm going to my prayer room, and then the next time we're talking about she deleted them. What was the leak? You know,
because it wasn't prayer.
Yeah. So anyway,
She wasn't praying.
She was talking to somebody.
I don't want to be wrong, but this was a good panel. Thanks, BMU. You know, Jay, I think I've subscribed to you, Jay, already. You know, so I'll have to check in and see what you're doing. And one of these days, I'm gonna have to go live, man. I'm gonna have to go live. See, that's where the fun's at.
Come on, R-Pain. We're waiting on you, man.
We're waiting on you.
That's where the fun's at. One of these days.
And later on, I will say this while you guys are here later on this week, Jay will be doing a show, and she's invited everyone. So I'll be sending everyone the information on that as well, because she's very excited to have us come over to her house. So we're gonna go over there and support her and be on her panel, and man, it's gonna be amazing. So I'm looking forward to it. Dr.
I think I'm subscribed to everybody's day on whatchamacallit.
Yeah, we definitely gotta make sure we support each other. Like BMU was saying, I was wanting to get a panel together on the nature versus nurture aspect of homosexuality. We touched on it. We had touched on it. Myself and one of my mentors when we did a video the other day, and people were loving that content. Like, I had so many live viewers during that little portion. I said, okay, well, obviously this is a pretty big, tough topic. So certainly if you guys would like to, I know BMU will get the information to you because he has all of you guys' contact information, but anyone is welcome to join when we get that going.
Can we just add one thing when you mentioned just one more thing? You know, I really believe that men are turning gay and transgender because they don't want the pressures of being men. I really believe that.
I've been saying that.
It's just easier, man.
They give you a tiara.
What's women's excuse?
Yeah, well, you know, they know how to touch each other better. That's what they say.
Oh,
you gonna
anyway, I'm done. You know,
Dr. Nkumbe, what you got for us, man?
Hey, but so your question about or statement, you know, telling your son that not to date single women, but I just wanted to bring up, you know, our visionary, not through our sight, so our imaginary and our eyesight, our sensory, our eyeballs. Those come into play way more many times than our reasoning and judgment. So what I see triggers me way more times than how I'm critically thinking. So when I look at a single woman, if my Superman complex kicks in, that I can help her, save her, fix her, pending her view. Now we have 2 women on the panel tonight, 2 that identify at least. So if you look at them, I could say one has a look, and I'm not talking about you ladies, but just in general, one has a look that looks welcoming and playful. The other one looks real serious. And so our stereotypes is the one that looks real serious. She has an attitude, and I better not say anything to her. So then we'll go play with hoops, but they both wear hoops. See, already I'm going away from critical thinking, and I'm going into my visionary. So see how they're both different, but then I combine them. They both have earrings now and loops or hoops. And now I'm going to think who I can have the most fun with and who I can do the most with. And if she has a child, she's not a virgin. So then that tells me, other things too, like what I think and entertain myself that I'm going to be doing with her and the possibilities. And I see the nurturing. Like if I see a good parent, if I see her caring and love and all that, I don't give a damn about the little kid. But I'm thinking like, wow, that's gonna be me soon, sucking up on the breast or getting my head rubbed or being held or stuff like that. So even though the realities are we should check these things out first, the fantasy kicks in. And then when we approach with this Superman complex, we're gonna help fix, or I want family, or I wanted kids of my own, or if I was raised by a single mother, we can either do the son, husband thing, or we can just say whatever. If I was raised by that, then guess what? I get to go home. That's home to me. If I see a mother with a kid and I grew up in a home where my mom was taking care of me primarily, and I connected to her like my mom wife, then I see another home, another potential for me to get in that situation. Couple things to think about. BM, you as a father, by the time I get to my dating stage, my growth compared to how you grew when you were a kid or what you dealt with, I'm at a different perspective. So my growth and learning leads me to this perceived thought that I'm gonna actually do better than what you did. Your generation, man, thanks for the warning, but my perception is through my growth, I'm gonna be good. Through my past experiences, all the things you warned me about, some of them didn't even pan out. Fuck around, you're gonna get the lights cut off, but never the lights have been cut off. You better eat up. Okay, one day you're not gonna have nothing to eat. I haven't missed a meal yet. So all those kind of warning things that I was warned about didn't happen. So I hear what you say about this woman, but she looks good. Compatibility. How are we connecting? What you connected to may not mean what I'm going to connect to. So therefore, what you said was helpful, but it's out the window because I feel like I connect with this woman. And then the last thing is the way I'm able to build with her. And that's where the men have to watch out, because we approach these women who are single parents, and then we have to watch out for the double message. We approach them, then they're talking about, oh, I can't be with someone if I'm not married. But you have, I want help, but I don't need nothing from nobody. I want my kids to have the best. No, I'm gonna do this by myself. So there's the double messages. And then I'll land with this, and this is just a message for Jay, but not to Jay, but about Jay's situation. Hint, hint, for those listening, Jay is in one of the most critical situations, at least that come through my door. You heard all the things she does, right? To be a helpmate. Then if her man cheats on her, I'm talking about Jay specifically, if the firefighter cheats on her, she's going to be beside herself. If the firefighter doesn't have time for her, she's going to be beside herself. If the firefighter makes love with her starting at 7, ends at 7:07, but then spends the next 4 hours in the computer room, she's going to be beside herself. And the reason I say that, not Jay, but those in the situation, please keep in mind when you're dating first responders, they come home with what's called vicarious trauma. And if we don't entertain the vicarious trauma, what starts to happen, it impacts the intimacy in the relationship. The first responders either don't know about it or they don't speak to it. So then the partner is wondering, like, what am I doing wrong? So again, not Jay, but I hear this often where people are like, man, I'm doing my part. Where did I go wrong? So just a hint for anyone in Jay's situation that you're dating a first responder, nurse, social worker, police, firefighter, military, so on and so on and so on. Keep in mind that when they come home, they have vicarious trauma. And even though you may have done everything by the book, plus just be prepared that they may be dealing with that and not even know it. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. JT, What We Know podcast in the building. What are your thoughts?
Ooh, it was a lot. So
I was like, please don't say me next. That's tough to follow up on, man.
All right, so let me.
It was a great conversation tonight, brother. Man, it was good. Go ahead.
Yeah. So let me speak on the concept of marriage, and I'm gonna look at it this way. I think when it comes down to this matrimonial union, I think that in America right now, I think a lot of people probably have to hold off on that. I think that when we're talking about relationships, that's way more, I think is more critical. I think that when we're talking about relationships, that we should add in everything that encompasses two people coming as one: finances, sex, relationships, with if they have extra children. I think that we should be talking about finances. That should probably be the first thing. Um, as far as it being a curriculum, it has to be a way that we have to do it. I don't think that marriage right now should be what people talking about. I think the how to get to marriage should what people be talking about, because the ideology of what marriage is has been so skewed, where you have so many people that are ruining their own lives by getting to this thing that they don't understand. And it comes from all of the things that we were just talking about tonight. And one of the biggest things is trauma, unresolved trauma. Having relationships with someone that has had a lot of trauma, whether it's small or large. One of the things that Doc always talk about is what we have as trauma, and we may not know that it's trauma. You wanted some ice cream, your daddy told you couldn't get no ice cream when you was 5 years old. Now you have something to add on to it, right? Then you got the big things that's trauma. We talked about young women being tampered with family members and things like that. I can tell you honestly, all the women I've ever came in contact with in my lifetime, at least 90% of them have been touched before. All the women in my lifetime I've ever came in contact with, 90%. And I might be lowballing that. So now when we're talking about these things that we have to get to when we talk about marriage, I don't think marriage it'll help by telling people to get married right away, or you got 6 months, you should be married at 2, because I don't think the majority of us understand the concept of marriage and merging our lives together. And it's ruining us right now. It's killing us right now, literally and figuratively. The other thing was okay, with the one with the lady and the young man, the young man she deleted. Pressure. That's the answer. Pressure. You can see people, if you pay attention to a lot of people, you can see how much pressure they're up under. You may not know what pressure it is, but you can see you can hear, if you're paying attention to a person in their conversation, the way that they move, it's a lot that you can really see, and it's pressure. I've seen someone that has put so much pressure, and a lot of times, money is definitely in that. Money, bills, everything just keeps building up. With that young lady, it kind of like, from what you, Christina, what you was saying about the young lady with the how she deleted my man. I think she had a lot of pressure. I think it got to the point where it was disappointment here and disappointment there, and all kind of other things. And then it probably was finances, and it probably wasn't the lack of finances. It's probably where the finances were put. Then the time that he's gone. Then it can be all kind of, but it was pressure. We don't know, but we do understand that there was a lot of pressure that was in that. And then we looking at the wedding. When they were showing the wedding, we seen how the theatrics look beautiful.
Yep.
Imagine if they had more effort into getting to the wedding and the marriage. If they put all that effort in there, then maybe both of them will still be alive, because it takes counseling. It would take something like counseling before you get to that. So I think it's just something that reflects on a lot of us, especially us that are trying to get to that holy matrimony type of thing. I just think that we definitely should be a lot careful when approaching it, and not because of the other person, but I think it's because of ourselves. I think we ignore a lot of the things that we have endured, and we didn't get anything resolved in it. And once we start getting things resolved, I mean, I don't want to use the word healed. I'm so tired of hearing that healed stuff. Resolved. It's one thing that can get resolved, two things, three things that can get resolved, and then you'll be able to get the pressure off of you. Most people have a lot of pressure on them. By the time they get with another person, they're ready to blow. They're ready to explode. So I think that concept of getting married, I think, is going to be overlooked every time if we don't say how to get to that point of marriage. And now we got to look at how we do relationships. We got to relook at it. We got to retrain ourselves, y'all.
Well, something got to take place. But hold on, let me say this real quick. Something got to take place, because right now, if you look at the average number, the average woman right now is having a baby by 21, married by 31. So now relationships are dyslexic because there's a family before there's a commitment.
Facts.
Right? And then if that man decides, well, shit, I don't want to marry her now you got another statistic. Now you got to add her to that 75% of women who are single moms raising a kid by herself. So they can understand the and I'm gonna say this because I'm gonna be raw. I gotta be unfiltered before we get out of here.
Come on.
I'm gonna say this. We can understand the concept of fucking, but we can't understand the concept of getting together and being married. We can understand the stroke out game and busting a nut and that sperm hitting that egg and she pregnant and having that baby. But we don't understand the concept of getting married.
BMU, getting a nut is impulsive and short term. Marriage, lifetime commitment.
So is that baby?
So, no, that's what I'm saying. But when we think in when we're in an impulsive world, must get it. Apple 15 is out, coming tomorrow. 16, 17, 18, gotta get it. And just one thing real quick, JT, spot on. Just want to remind us, trauma does not heal or resolve. You can heal it and resolve it. You cannot cure it. It's like herpes. It does not go away. It impacts our reasoning and our functioning part of our brain. We can actually be excited, but it impacts our reasoning and functioning. Christina, thanks for the video. Much appreciated. And that talking point you brought in, so much appreciated. And then who looks like they have mental illness. So gentlemen, after you've experienced some things and you start to know the patterns, look for the patterns. If you just go for a set of cheeks, ass cheeks, unless they're shaped funny, you're just going to keep going to the same ass. So learn the attitudes. Learn the attitudes. All right, peace.
Thanks, Doc.
All right, thank you, brother. All right, Mr. Bennett, last but not least at all. Mr. Bennett, what are your thoughts?
So much tonight. Great show. Yeah, we went all over the map tonight. To Doctor's point earlier, try to keep it more in succinct. Just this whole time, just thinking about mental illness, having grown up with someone who's had it, and certainly to kind of co-sign with Dr. Nkume. In fact, I was having a conversation with my daughter yesterday. We were just talking about family, like just our family, and just some of the things we've had to deal with in our family when it came to mental illness. And I said that, the only time my mom really got help for it was she had to commit a violent act. Because typically when you commit a violent act, you get law enforcement involved. And once you get them in, then she can be evaluated and institutionalized. Unless she said, I got a problem, I need to get some help. Generally, the stuff just doesn't get diagnosed, and people just learn how to live with it or how to work around it. And all these decades later, you never get cured of it. To Doctor's point, you learn to manage it, to mitigate. You can take certain drugs to mitigate certain things, the behaviors, but then you deal with the idea of them becoming essentially a vegetable, in terms of not being that person when they're at their best. So we're asking these questions like, well, why do people do these things? They should know better. They should know they need to get help. Again, when the wiring is broken, when the software has a virus and is doing things what they shouldn't be doing, they can't take those measures. And again, the way our system works is you just can't say, look, mom acting crazy, so let's get her some, let's put her in an institution or something like that. They either have to volunteer for it, or you got to get law enforcement in. That's the only way a person really gets to get the issue addressed. So just to say, just in general about the traumas that people are going through. These are things that you just can't necessarily pray away or self-medicate away or try to pick up other vices in order to deal with these things. But just as a people in general, we're just we said we don't want to. Most of us, we don't want to. If we got old parents, we don't want to go to the doctor. Period for anything, right? Men, like brother Hank was here, was he always saying, men, get your prostate. If you're over 50, get your prostate checked, get that colonoscopy done. You got that diabetes or whatever. Just in general, we're just very averse to any form of medicine. Some of that is based on what's been done to us. Some of it is based on what's been told to us, and that's also been part of the conversation. What has been shared in our community has been so much exaggeration and old wives' tales and stories, things that just, again, if you tell these things over and over, it becomes reality to us. So there's a lot of unpacking that we need to do in our world. I'll say world. I know a lot of people talk about communities and whatnot, and while we're not a community, there's a lot of communities, right? When you think about a community in general, a true community is one where you kind of know everybody, right? The community that you grew up in, you knew the mailman, you knew the doctors, you knew everybody who was there. So communities are meant to be small. And there's a lot of communities. Now, how can we get these communities networked, the right ones, to get together so that we can come up with more global solutions for our people? If you don't want to use community, we're still a people with a lot of communities that are disjointed from one another, have a lot of distrust with one another, but we have to find a way to connect, right? But one of the things that we have to do is, again, when it comes to these traumas, when it comes to mental health in general, again, we have to be a lot more mature in terms of how we approach it. And as far as, again, for those who are dealing with it, or if you have relatives that you're dealing with this, understand, you're gonna have your good days and your bad days with it. You may go years where things are good, and then anything kind of flip it back off. And so those are things that so I don't know, it's just on my heart. I just want to encourage people, if you know people in your families, and again, we don't talk about crazy Uncle Joe or this person, either you came back from war or post trauma, or you developed schizophrenia. Like, all these things are like real things in our communities, and we just are not addressing these things. But you have to come to a point where you almost have to put your feelings aside in order to address the issues. For those who you love, you almost have to turn your love off, or love differently, love in an agape way, love in a way that's not so tied to that individual, because again, the individual that you love is not always there all the time. And so how you go about dealing with and handling that situation, you have to be very stoic. I think someone mentioned stoicism earlier. You got to take stoicism to the 8th level if you really want to get them the help that they need, and as well as dealing with your own emotions about it. And that was certainly one thing that I had to come to, because it got to a point where I'm the youngest of my family, and I was the one who mainly had to make sure that my mom was taken care of in the end. Then God always has a reason why he puts people here, and I think that was the reason why. So so just when it comes to these things, we can always come to conclusions or whatnot, but these are very complex things that we need to, I think, handle with a little bit more understanding and sensitivity. Yes, the tragic, and for these kids, you pray for these kids, and pray that they can have a more positive outcome. But they're gonna be dealing with this, so they're gonna need all the support that they can get. So that's really, I mean, I was kind of going a different direction, but after that, I kind of never got over that video once you played it, Black Man. So that's just what's been driving me, for the rest of this conversation. But again,
Right.
thanks for having this, and maybe in future spaces we can have a lot more mature, conversation on these issues, especially those who are really dealing with not just stresses or whatnot, but people got real issues, and they're drugging the heck out of people just to keep them from functioning. but we're not curing anybody. And we just got, you go to a mental institution, you go to these nursing homes or whatnot, you just got people who are just literally, just alive, alive but not living. And so that those are some real things, and we need to deal with that. So that's all I got for today. But
Now,
again,
I will
thanks
say
for the
this a fun
opportunity.
fact before we get to Christina. Have you guys, by show of hand, have you got anybody on the panel ever seen a movie called *Malignant*?
I think I've heard of it. No, I haven't seen it. But I
You
think it's
saw it,
I've heard of
Jamie?
it.
It's very.
Where can you see it at? Because I've heard it. Bro,
You can watch it on You
yeah.
can watch it on Max. It's not HBO Max, but Max. I think you can watch it on Max, Hulu maybe. But yeah, a woman walked around her whole life, and a good woman had a bad guy, and he was very abusive. And one day she was carrying his child, and one day he got up physically abusive and slapped her head into the wall. Well, what he didn't know and what she didn't know is that she had a twin brother that died inside of her. The baby was definitely died inside of her. They didn't take everything of the baby. Some of his brain fragments were still in her, some of his nerve endings. And so when her head hit the wall, it woke that part of the brain up that he's in charge of.
I ain't watching it.
He put her ass to sleep.
I'm not watching it. I'm sorry.
Bro.
You just
Yeah, it's definitely got
I'm
like
just that's a lousy marketing
horror
campaign. It's
film.
like no,
Bro,
I can't
he
deal
put
with
her
that.
ass to sleep and went to
Oh my
work.
gosh. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my God. But anyway, it's called *Malignant*.
That'll mess me up, man.
Oh, you
I'll
didn't
have
give me
to
something
check
to watch
that out.
now.
That sounds interesting.
You'll lose. Yeah, figure you see it, Ray. Yeah,
Yeah,
figure.
right. When you watch it, let me know. But Christina, thank you so much for being here tonight. Did you have fun?
Yeah, I loved it. You'll never understand how much this impacted me just personally. You'll never understand. I don't have.
So we'll bring you back now. If you want to come back, we'll bring you back. We love family now. We love being around each other.
You think so?
But what are your final thoughts?
Everybody you all did a phenomenal job. One thing I will tell you all just collectively have a fatherly energy, just a loving fatherly energy, no ulterior motive, very comfortable, just like a safe space, honestly, even for a female, even though,
Thank you.
most female,
Yeah.
no ulterior motive, just a fatherly essence.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that. I appreciate
love it. That's why we love this
and
space.
we're going to have more lady panels too, because we had a great one about 4 weeks ago. It was so we're
call her name.
Yeah, we ain't gonna say no names. I mean, but no, I'm just saying.
You ain't me.
Right. Definitely, Christina. I promise you, I will definitely invite you back and check in with you, see if it's something you want to be interested in on the different topics that we have coming up pretty soon. And guys, I mean, we've had a great conversation. I don't have much to say either. Thank you guys for everything. Thank you for coming over. Jay, thank you for sharing your time with us. Lost in Translation. Reckless, Mr. Bennett. Now, listen, I got all the bald head guys on the bottom row for a reason.
Salute. Salute. Salute to that shine. Yes. Right
you see, I want to strategically do this because I got all the bald head guys on the bottom row. I got the light skinned guys together at the top. We don't have no locks on here. What's going on? We got to figure it out. But no, guys,
blocks
seriously.
are going away. The dinosaurs again. Bald.
Oh man, see there we go. We was good until you said that. There we go. But guys, later on in the week we have some shows. Tomorrow, we have some shows tomorrow. I got them here. Let's see what we got coming up tomorrow. All right, tomorrow we got we sports show at 7 p.m. And is Dak on notice in Dallas since they signed old Trey Lance? And Coach Prime prepares for his first game this weekend. I will be there. It's at TCU here in Fort Worth, Texas. Oh wow! I will be there to witness that first game, so it's going to be amazing to do that.
Yeah, post some pictures or video if you got it. I'd love to see that.
Are they bringing Jackson State band?
Man, you know what I'm saying? And then tomorrow night at 8:30, Mandrell and Shushu Unapologetic. They got dirty hands while politicians seem so corrupt. And then
shout out to Mandrell. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
So shout out to
happy birthday, Mandrell.
I bought him a step stool.
And the sippy
I got him a car seat.
Absolutely. And then on Thursday, we have Dr. Nkumbe, who was here tonight, along with Coach K. They have their show on Thursday. It's going to be judging and complaining about others. And then on Friday, men should not protect any woman who is not under his covering. That's question mark. So we're going to talk about that on Friday in the barbershop. Guys, it's been a great show. I love each and every one of you. If you need me, reach out because we got to be here for each other. Rising tide raises all ships. All right. And we out, y'all. And until next time, peace.